call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Northfield School Board. And could I get a motion to accept, the time is 6:01 and the date is March 6, 2026. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second? Thank you, Amy. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is accepted. We have a long session tonight, and Amy Jordan from MSBA is going to be facilitating the majority of that time. We are in a special meeting, and so to adjourn or to take any breaks, we'll take a motion in a second on that. And let's see. I want to also give a special thank you to Kelly for helping us through this administrative task, and of course Tim being here tonight, and then I will throw it to Amy Jordan.
Did I just push the button? Is it on? Is it? Testing. There it is. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I'm so looking forward to assisting you throughout the superintendent search process. We're going to start this evening by doing an abbreviated version of the Hiring the Right Superintendent workshop that MSBA has. We're doing an abbreviated version because this workshop is set up for boards who might not be sure yet what that process is even going to look like, whether they're even going to hire a firm or not. And so it kind of does a big overview of the entire process. And so we're going to kind of start with that workshop, and then we'll get into the details for the search here in Northfield Public Schools with the timeline and all of that information. So we're going to start with, you all have the booklet in front of you of the Hiring the Right Superintendent workshop. So to get started, there's a few do's and don'ts of hiring a workshop at the bottom. We say do determine the school district's needs first, and I'll be we'll get into the hiring criteria and a lot of those details yet tonight even, and so I just don't want to spend a lot of time on it right now at this level, just because we're going to be discussing it more in depth during the planning meeting portion, and there will be a few other times when I'll say that as well throughout the meeting, and I'll be touching on a few other pieces that we do almost the exact same portion of that as part of the interview training. And so again, I don't want to be wasting all of your time by doing a lot of that, because it'll become very redundant for you. So there's a few do's and don'ts down there. We're going to talk about hiring criteria survey. We do want you to try to arrive at a consensus. So of course, we want you to all be sufficiently aligned to be able to move forward. And what we kind of look for is that the group can support the decision, even though it might not be everybody's first choice. That's what we're looking for. We want you to take enough time to do a thorough search, make certain that all members of the board are able to participate in the process. We don't want you to hire the best of the worst, right? So if we're throughout the search process, if at any time you view all of the application materials and you decide the right person isn't in there, or if you start interviewing candidates and you feel they're not the right person, we don't want you to just move forward. We want you to find the right candidate for Northfield Public Schools. So we don't want you to settle. We want you to find the right person, and we'll help you throughout that process to make sure that you do. We always say don't overlook those who are already in the school district. You're not required to do a superintendent search at all. So if there is somebody internally that you are already thinking about, we would actually recommend that you post it internally first and try to move through that process first. Because if it's widely known that there's an heir apparent, that will affect your pool. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Sometimes boards don't know if there is an internal candidate who may be applying, and so it just becomes part of the process. And I'll walk you guys through all of that. If we're, as soon as we post the position, it becomes even playing field for everybody. So an internal or an external candidate, they all go through the exact same process. So don't let me identify the best superintendent for your district. Don't worry, I won't be. This is your search. You guys will be making all of the decisions. Again, we say this is general, things to keep in mind, especially if you end up not going with a consultant as well. So we will provide recommendations, but they are just that. They are just recommendations. You will have access to all of the application materials so that you know that you're making the best choice. And then we say, don't give away your right to select the next superintendent. It's one of the most important jobs as a school board member is to select and hire and employ the superintendent. So you don't want to give that away. You are the only legal hiring authority for that role. Okay, so if we go to page 1, beginning the search, a couple of things to just think about. We're kind of into the process already. So as far as budget goes, some of those things might be additional advertising costs. We'll talk about the potential if you are interested in posting on any of the national job sites, and we'll get into that tonight with the planning meeting. Also, potentially, there may be some legal fees if you use your counsel for assistance with the contract or something like that. You may have legal fees with that. The consultant fees, of course, you have already decided on that to use the MSBA as your search firm. And then another thing to discuss at some point, and a lot of times we wait to see what the pool looks like, but you might want to discuss whether or not you would contribute anything towards candidates' travel costs at all. So if you have a candidate who might be coming from out of state, would the school board be willing to contribute towards their travel costs or not? It's not necessarily common. It does happen sometimes in large districts. They may do for round 2, not typically for round 1, but sometimes. And so thinking through some of that, also if there's somebody from out of state, we could potentially do a Zoom. And so you can think if you want to accommodate that way or if you want to require them to come in person. So something to discuss later down the road. And then potentially site visit expenses, which I'll get into that in a little bit, but typically we don't see a lot of site visits happening anymore. And I'll explain those when we get a little bit further into the process. So talking about beginning this search, so the search timeline, on page 2, it kind of has a general overview of what the whole search looks like. And these are like just key pieces that are included throughout the search process. You're not required to do any specific piece. And I'll be walking you through the entire process the whole way. So if you look at that first section on page 2 where it has month 1, we're gonna, obviously you've already selected to use MSBA. We're gonna be doing the search timeline tonight. We're gonna set all of the dates tonight. They've already pulled it up from the planning meeting packet. So we'll walk through and we're gonna outline the entire rest of the search process tonight during that planning meeting. We're also gonna launch the date that we open the position. We're also going to launch the public input survey. And so that's another piece, that gathering input from your community, from staff, and what that looks like. So that will begin developing hiring criteria. Again, we're going to do that tonight. We're going to creating the search vacancy brochure. You can see we already have a draft for that for you to look at tonight to see if there's any edits. We'll talk through that leadership profile because that was from your hiring criteria survey. We're gonna, the application process and the selection process, that's all wrapped into our services, and then announce the vacancy. And so that whole first one that says month 1, most of those will already be launched by next Tuesday. Most of them will be done after tonight, but we'll begin gathering feedback and we'll begin posting the position on Tuesday as our tentative timeline to do that. So we're gonna have a lot of that first month will almost already be done tonight, other than obviously gathering that input. We're still going to be gathering it, but we're gonna launch beginning to gather it. Month 2, obviously, so starting right away on Tuesday next week, we would start advertising the position. We'll start taking questions from candidates who might be interested in the position. And then we'll talk through further down the road, when I meet with you guys again, we'll walk through some of the interview process to make sure that you all are very comfortable with the process and ready for when we start interviewing candidates. It's hard to think that when we're at this point to start thinking about interviewing already, but it'll be here before you know it. And then also screening applicants. The next kind of pieces, so I mentioned, so then we'll get into the finalists interviews, and we'll do, you guys can do site visits if you want. Again, they're not very common anymore. I don't know any of the districts that I have worked with that have done site visits. And so what that is, so we do the pre-screening of all of the application materials. Barb will, I'm pretty sure Barb talked to you guys about this already, that we have a network of service providers across the state who will have 3, maybe 4 who are specifically assigned to Northfield Public Schools. They will also be reviewing all of the application materials, and we'll be looking at considering who we might be recommending that you interview. And then we'll begin, once we're looking at who's kind of rising to the top, what might we consider, we'll do deeper vetting of those candidates, and we'll do a pre-screening interview with them. We call references, we do social media sweeps, and we're really looking at those candidates a lot deeper to determine who we will recommend. And then after round 1 interviews, now names are public, right? So once you have selected who you're going to interview, those names will go public. I'll get into that in a lot more detail later too. Once you select who you're going to interview, those names will go public. And so you'll start to be lobbied for and against candidates. And so after round 1, when you've really narrowed it down to 2, maybe 3 candidates, we're going to recommend that 2 or 3 board members do extra reference checking. And those could be people that are listed in their reference materials, but also it doesn't have to be, because their names are public now. We want you to dig a little deeper. You can contact school board members in their current district. That you have a lot more ability at that time. And so we're gonna recommend that you do a little bit more of that. But the site visits themselves, they used to happen a lot more often. And so, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 board members would actually go to the district that the candidate is currently in to meet with people. You ask them to help facilitate and set that up. Again, it does not happen very often. Nowadays, so much stuff is available online that you don't need to necessarily go in and do that anymore. In fact, again, none of the districts that I have worked with have gone to do that, but it is something that used to happen pretty regularly. We also like to think if you only want to do it probably on your top, 2 candidates, because that gets to be really time consuming for board members as well, if you were going to do it. But and then that conducting the final reference checks, that piece I just mentioned about as well. And then you will make the announcement and negotiate that employment contract. Again, all of this we're going to get to in a lot more detail when we get to the actual timeline, and so I don't want to spend much more time on it right now. Do you guys have any questions just on the overview piece of the timeline? Sure.
Thank you. I've been reminded to use my mic. During the initial round, are those open to the public? So you said, does it depend on how many board members are interviewing as part of that process, or are the candidates made public during the first round of interviews? Sorry if you said that and I missed it.
Sure, no, that I did not mention that. So all of the meetings throughout the process are open meetings. So they would all be open meetings. If the only way that you could do interviews in a private meet or in it wouldn't be a private or a closed meeting because they all have to be open meetings. The way that you could keep names from going public, like all of the if you're down to 6 or 7, would be is if you had an interview committee, but you have to have not adopted, I believe it's policy 213. If your subcommittees are required to act like a board, meaning you have to be in open meeting, then you would be unable to do a private round 1 interview. And if you did it that way, it would only be a subcommittee. The whole board would not be able to interview them. So typically, we're going to recommend against that because we think it's really important for all board members to be a part of that. But we understand that some candidates might be less likely to apply, knowing that their name would go public with potentially, 5 other candidates in a round 1. And so that's a board decision, but it would also, there's certain things that have to be in place before you'd even be able to consider that. So if you typically operate your committees as open meetings, I would also then consult your attorney if you're suggesting that you might want to do that.
Okay.
But yes, otherwise they're all in open meetings throughout the whole entire process. Yeah. Okay, so beginning the search. So on page 3, we talk about involving your stakeholders. So the entire school board should be definitely involved in the search. And everyone from district staff, parents, members of the community, they all have a stake in the outcome of this search. And so it's really important that you are listening to the different groups across the district and the community. And so it's really important for you to create opportunities for people to engage. So one of the ones specifically through our search process is going to be the public input survey that we do. It's available to all people 24/7 online during that period of time. And then also, of course, not everybody's comfortable filling stuff online. And so typically you'll have a couple of hard copies in the district office that people could fill out if they're more comfortable doing that as well. And so that's one of the ways to start to begin hearing from the community and the staff about what they're looking for. You want to have them provide input on qualifications. There's just an example on page 3 of some potential hiring criteria. Again, our process is already been developed. We're a few steps ahead of this already, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. But as far as involving the stakeholders, there's different levels throughout, or different ways to do that throughout the entire search process. And I'll get into those in a lot more detail when we get to your specific search. So you definitely want to, we know that every board, you want a superintendent with multiple strengths, and there's going to be a lot of things that you're looking for. We want you to identify the highest priorities, because those are the things that are key for your district right now in your next leader. And so that's what we'll be talking about when we get into that hiring criteria information, when we get to your leadership profile. We'll get into that in a lot more detail. So we did talk a little bit about internal candidates or internal applicants, and there's more about that on this page. I just want to touch on a couple of things, making sure that you're not making any promises of employment if there is an internal candidate, and being careful to imply that they don't have any sort of advantage over any external candidates. Because again, once the search process, or once the application opens, it is the exact same process for everybody, whether they're internal or external. So your job is to find the best possible person for the position. Okay, so just a couple of things. I touched on this a little bit, a couple of legal considerations. So all of the school board meetings related to the search are open meetings. So I touched on that you won't be able to close a meeting at all for any parts of the search, even including when you're talking about contract negotiations, because your superintendent's not a bargaining unit. So you can't close a meeting to talk negotiation strategy, because that's not how that works. Your superintendent's an at-will employee. And so you won't be closing the meeting for any aspects of the superintendent search. Balancing with that, of course, is the Data Practices Act. So all of your applicants, anybody who applies for this position, it is private data. And so you might, even if you have somebody who applies for the position and is walking around and telling everybody and really gunning for the position, and somebody comes up to you and says, I heard so-and-so applied, you as board members cannot confirm or deny that. You have to say, I'm sorry, that's private information. It is private data, anybody who applies for this position. Only after you have selected who you're going to interview, those names and those names only then become public information, and they'll be read aloud at the end of that meeting. And so then those names are public. Anybody else who applied, it remains private data forever. And so I'll remind you of that as we get closer into the process when you're going to be looking at application materials. We typically do the interview training meeting shortly before, just so that you have all of that fresh top of mind on how all of that works. And so you'll receive an email that will have all of the candidate names with an alpha identifier, also then notifying you that now you have access to the application materials. And so that way, when we're at the meeting and you're discussing in an open meeting the private data, when you're talking about candidate A or candidate B or candidate C, you all have the same list so that you all know who candidate A is and you don't have different names by those letters. That way we can have that conversation in the open, even though we're discussing private data. Okay, so as far as salary, again, we're gonna get into this in detail when we get to that vacancy brochure. It's just a reminder that you must have a starting salary range posted in the application, or in the, in the vacancy brochure. The next page talks about dealing with the media. We think that the most important way to do that, or the best way to do that, is to be proactive. And so along the way, we'll want to be sending out press releases and making sure that they're all getting them at the same time. Number one states, appoint a designated spokesperson for the school board. We'll be doing that tonight. So we'll be talking about that. Typically, it's the board chair, not always. And so we'll be talking about that tonight as well. And then we want to invite the media to help us spread the word about getting input from the public and from the community, from the staff, helping us spread the word that you want to hear their voice and what they're looking for in this next superintendent. Is this coming through loud enough? Ooh, sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So, yes, we'll send the info about the survey. We also have another opportunity, the Q&A session. So I'll do a live Zoom session that there will be a link that anybody from the community can go on live and watch it. They could submit questions about the process ahead of time, and then I'll answer their questions anonymously. So they can ask the questions anonymously, and then I'll answer them on that live Zoom. And we record that so that it can be put on the district website so that anybody can have access to information about the search throughout the process. And so I'll be sending information to Kelly to help get the word out about the survey itself, and it'll include links to the Zoom, how to submit questions ahead of time. And so we'll want to get that out to the press too, so that they can help us spread the word. We want to be good partners with the media throughout the whole process. Okay. So this just touches on the different points along the search process that you want to send them information, and we'll be doing that right along the way. So we don't need to spend much time about that. The next page has a screening tool that you may use. You don't have to use. It's just a tool that you can use while you're screening the applicants. Just something that's available to you. You can completely create your own scoring tool if you want to, and you don't even have to do any sort of scoring tool when you're screening the applicants. You can just take your notes. You'll have access to all of those materials, so you'll have a lot of information to go through. And so it might be easy to make a scoring tool, but you aren't required to at all. You can just make your notes for the things that you like the best about the candidates. And then, so talking about the interviews themselves. So a lot of times interviewers form impressions in the first few minutes, and we're just gonna ask that you keep an open mind throughout. And then we talk about developing questions around the hiring criteria, because tonight we're gonna be discussing that in the leadership profile, the things that are most important for Northfield Public Schools. And so we wanna create interview questions that are gonna help us identify who's stronger and strongest in those areas, to help us narrow down from, say, maybe 4, 5, 6 candidates down to 2 or 3 candidates. And so round one is usually pretty heavily questions around the leadership profile. And then round 2 are sometimes a deeper dive into maybe what we started to learn in round 1. And then sometimes it's a lot of other things. What are the other things that we still need to know before you guys can make your decision on who you want to offer the position to? And then it mentions in here that each school board member should ask questions. Again, I'll walk you guys through the whole interview process when we get closer. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. But just a reminder that there are some don't ask things that you should keep in mind. Oh, that might be on the next page. Or maybe it's coming up and maybe it's not. But there's definitely some don't ask questions. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because that's part of our interview training. So you'll see I'll probably skip over some of this stuff because of that specifically. So part of the process is we'll use the same interview questions for all candidates, and we're going to ask the interview questions in exactly the same order. Typically, we don't have follow-up questions unless we're not hearing if we're not hearing enough depth. A follow-up question that would be appropriate is, could you tell us more about that? Or can you go a little deeper about that? So those are usually the type of follow-up questions that you might have. We don't want to veer off of the main question. And then just a reminder to take good notes during that. Again, I'm going to walk you through this, but keep in mind that your notes will be subject to they can be subject to a data request. So make sure that your notes are professional and appropriate. Okay, then there's a bunch of potential interview questions, which we're not going to spend time on, but just know that they're there so that when we are talking interview questions, if you want another resource for some available or ideas, this is just another resource for you. The interview training materials also have a whole bunch of questions in there as well, but I'll be coming with other questions specifically around your leadership profile. So then we have the page 12 has the don't ask, the protected class categories. Again, we won't have to worry about this because I'm going to be working with you guys to do the interview questions, but just keeping in mind if there's informal time. So if while I'm walking a candidate out, somebody's running to the bathroom and you happen to just be in the hallway, you just want to be careful about informal time. And that if you're going to have, small chit chat, keep it to the weather because that's what's okay to talk about. I do want to mention though that sometimes during the interviews, candidates will share information that you can't consider. And that's okay. They're telling you about themselves and they're sharing what they want to share. That's okay. A couple of things that if they do that, ignore it. Don't discuss it during the deliberations. Don't ask any follow-up questions about it. And make sure that it's not a factor in the decision at all. And a reminder to not have anything about any of those things in your notes. Because again, anybody can think that you were then considering it to make your decision. So it shouldn't be in your notes at all. Okay, the next couple of pages, the candidate's turn, common interview mistakes, those we'll go through during interview training. So I'm not going to go through that at all. Page 15, so there's like a sample interview summary form in there. And this is kind of similar to our EMD form. So during the interviews themselves, you'll have hard copies. And I know a lot of you do most of your stuff online, but I will be bringing hard copies for all of you to be able to take notes on how they answered the questions. You want to take really good, thorough notes on how they answer the questions, because if you're interviewing 6 people, by the time you get to the 5th or the 6th interview, you might forget who said what in the first or second interview. So you want to make sure you're taking really good notes. Again, making sure it's relevant to the job. And then we typically have you rate their response overall on whether that they exceeded your expectation or your requirement, they met it, or they did not meet, or they disappointed you. And so we'll have you do a quick snapshot response to their question, how you viewed their question. And then we'll have a short break after the interviews, and we'll compile all of that for you and share it with you. So you have a quick snapshot of how all of your fellow board members felt the candidates responded to the questions. Okay, so that's kind of similar to that. Again, we'll get into that a lot further down the road in the process. So this checking the references, I mentioned this already earlier. So the school board has the responsibility to probe deeper. When we do our reference checks, their names are private. So we are bound by that data privacy. So we can't be calling other people, right, to do our vetting of the candidates. And so we will use all of our resources that we do have, but because it is private data, we can't go any further than that. And that's why we talk about you guys doing a second round of reference checks between round 1 and round 2. I'm going to go through this process a lot more in depth with the people who will be conducting those. So we're going to go right past that. There's like some samples and some references in there as well. So then there's some information about those site visits. If you are going to do them, you would need to do all of the people who are in that level. Otherwise, if you want to just do the top choice, it's going to be delaying your entire process. So again, we typically don't see those happening very often. As far as doing a second round of interview, we really suggest them. Sometimes somebody just blows you away in round 1. And there's a few reasons to do round 2. You still want to make sure that your first impression holds up again, right? Are they consistent? Because you never know. Sometimes, somebody can come and just blow it away, and then they come back and they just don't do as well. Either they feel more pressure, or there's all kinds of different reasons. And so you want to make sure that that first impression holds up, but also to answer any other questions that you might still have. Because again, the first round is so heavy on the leadership profile that there's going to be all kinds of other questions that you're still going to want to have answers to. And also, if you are selecting to have additional input during the interview process, that's typically in round 2. So if you have people who are already lined up to do that, it's good to kind of see that through to have that input from community or staff or whoever that might be, whatever that looks like. Again, that's not something that we'll be deciding tonight. It's a part of the process, and we'll discuss it at another meeting further on down the road. Okay, on page 20 of the booklet, this is a little bit about deliberating in public. Is that me? I'm sorry if that's me. So we have information about deliberating in public, and again, we're going to do all of this in a lot more detail during the interview training because it'll be really close to that point in time. Just a couple of things. We keep our deliberations very positive and kind of focused on the strengths of the candidates. But again, like I said, it's going to be covered in the interview training materials. Just a couple of things is that you definitely, especially if we're going to be live streaming the deliberations portion, you want to be careful that you're not alienating a potential candidate who might be listening to your deliberations. And so that's why that's one of the reasons why we focus on strengths during that deliberations process. Because if somebody's listening to that, they may turn you down for a round 2 interview when you haven't necessarily seen everything that you need to see to make your decision yet. So do focus on those positive attributes, and of course we want you to judge the candidates based on your leadership profile. We'll be bringing back so the public input survey that is going to be open beginning next week. We'll bring the results to the board of that, and we'll be sharing that with you. We're going to recommend that you place that on your district website as well. And then there's 2 questions in that survey that are identical to the 2 questions you answered when we sent you the hiring criteria survey. And so it'll really give us a good apples to apples to see if there's alignment, if there's something else that they picked up on that they're looking for in the next superintendent. And then we'll have that front and center. I bring it back to all the rest of your meetings so that you can fall back on that and remember, this is our leadership profile. This is what we as a board selected as our top hiring criteria. This is what our community and our staff is looking for in the next superintendent. So it's a piece of the remainder of the search. So you want to have that. You want to judge your candidates based on that. As far as the employment contract goes, we do MSBA partners with MASA to have a model contract, and I will be providing that to you guys. We have a brand new 2026 version that has the Minnesota Paid Leave Act in it, and then you guys can work from there. As I mentioned before, you can't close the meeting when you're discussing the contract. You can, however, I don't know if you have like, a lot of times you can use that as like your model. If you have a committee that might work on that, whatever your process would normally be for that is what you should do. As far as when it comes to the negotiating it with the candidate, once you have selected who you want to offer the position to, we recommend prior to that the board has already kind of set some parameters on the negotiations so that you can have a board designee do the actual negotiating with the candidate instead of having to, where you guys decide, here's the contract that we're going to offer. You give it to the candidate and then they come back with counter. Now you have to set another date, wait 3 more days. It just makes the process go a lot longer. So we usually recommend that you have a board designee who's going to do that kind of back and forth, but they already have some parameters so that when they do bring it back to the board, because of course you all need to approve that final contract, that there won't be any surprises. They already know that it's going to be likely going to be approved. So we suggest that you kind of have those ideas before you go into the round 2 interviews. And that doesn't have to be at a meeting with me. It depends on whatever your normal process would be for that. But I will definitely be sending you that model contract that we have. And then as far as evaluations, I know you guys already have an evaluation process in place. However, part of our regular transition, or part of our search services is that I'll come back in the fall to work with the new superintendent and the board to do a transition workshop. And we talk about setting expectations for the first year and what the highest, maybe 2, 3 big priority areas are that you want that superintendent to focus on for the purposes of evaluation. And so I'll come back and do that in the fall to make sure that your superintendent is clear on what is expected of them in that first year. And so that's a service that we'll be providing. And then you'll have that goals and standards-based superintendent evaluation booklet from that as well. And just touching on, of course, you can close your superintendent evaluation meeting unless they request that it be done in an open meeting. Okay, the next section has some foundations for good school board superintendent relationships. So having set written mission, beliefs, and vision statements, making sure that your school board policy and administrative procedures handbook is up to date, a good superintendent employment contract so that everybody is clear, the superintendent job description, making sure that all of those expectations are laid out and clear for your superintendent, having that evaluation system in place, making sure that there's a school district strategic plan, which there is, and I have the sheet with me, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. The school board doing a self-evaluation, and then of course, ongoing training as board members and your superintendent. Those are kind of those key foundational aspects to make for a good board superintendent relationship. And the rest of that booklet is just an appendix that has sample application forms and sample vacancy announcements and those sorts of things, which you guys won't need any of that because I'll be doing all of that for you. So, very abbreviated version. And I spoke a lot. Does anybody have any questions on that before we get into really the core of tonight, which is getting the planning meeting kicked off? Yes.
So you mentioned setting the salary range, but wouldn't we have to do that during an open meeting, which seems to sort of defeat the purpose of the negotiation process? So how does that work?
That is a great question. And so, tonight we'll be setting a salary range. It's a starting salary range. And so there's all kinds of things that can go into the contract negotiations. You want to set a salary range, but the overall compensation package is not what you're deciding tonight. Those are those parameters that I think, if you have like a subcommittee that would do that, or taking information, obviously your business manager is going to have, is that the title, business manager? Director of Finance. So your director of finance would be a great resource for that. And then potentially also an attorney, if you veer off of the model contract at all, to be able to give you that input. But yes, I mean, it kind of depends on your candidate as well. But yeah, it does have to be done in an open meeting, the overall. So if you're, you can also, if you're, your director of finance, and I don't know, do you guys have a committee that would normally do the contract negotiations with your superintendent?
We do not.
Okay. Okay. And so when you do that, do you usually do that in an open meeting, or when did you used to do your contract negotiations with your superintendent?
The chair usually meets with the director of finance, and then we bring that document back to the board.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's basically what I would recommend, is that you would have those discussions to kind of, so that the parameters that are available or able to be used, and then you would bring it back to the board. And if then the board is, if it doesn't pass, then you would have to go back in and then discuss that with the superintendent. But hopefully that wouldn't be what would happen. But yeah. Did I answer that question? Okay. Okay. But yeah, that's why we want to have that done, kind of have those ideas and have that research so that you know where you're sitting at as far as negotiations go. But there's different pieces that go into the contract. That's what I was starting to say. Depending on what that candidate is looking for, they may be looking for more in their 403B and, maybe don't need as high of a salary, or vice versa. They might not want any 403B contribution and they want a higher salary. And so there's a little wiggle room in that, and that's why you want to have a range as well. Okay, any other questions? Yeah?
Just in general, how many applicants do you tend to get for this type of position? And how many are you expecting for like Northfield, which I think is a gem of a place that hopefully will attract a lot?
Well, you guys have a really great reputation, so that definitely helps. That's a really good question. I wish I knew. I can tell you what our average probably is, or what we've been seeing. So this year, we're starting to see a decent rebound in numbers. I'd say the last few years have been a lot smaller pools than typical. We've had, and of course it depends on the district. We've had some, and geography plays a part into it. Some districts have had, maybe one, two, three candidates, depending on the district. And we've had some that have had upwards of 30. And so it really varies on the district. I would say right now we're probably averaging closer to 15 to 20 in pools this year, is a little bit closer to what we're seeing. As far as Northfield itself, it depends on, there's a lot of things to factor into it. But like I said, you guys have a great reputation. That helps. A lot of things that the candidates we usually hear are looking for is obviously geography, and you guys have a great spot for that as well. With a lot, this is a wonderful community. Like, your downtown is so fun. It's one of the places that I have brought people to visit, because it's fun. It's a great place to be. So in addition to the geography, of course, they're looking at salary, and reputation of the district as a whole, and reputation of the board. And so those are the things that are going to play a part into it as well. So it's hard to know for sure. I wish I knew, but I don't know exactly where we'll be at.
Do we make public how many applicants we have? Is that part of the process, or?
It can be, yeah. You can announce how many total applicants there were. We don't usually give updates during the application process. Once it closes, that number is then released, and that's public. Yeah, and so that's typically part of the press release, is how many applicants there were in the pool. Yeah. Any other questions?
I just have a question for the board, just out of curiosity. How many people on the board have professionally hired, in a professional setting like this?
Tire?
Hired, yeah. Okay, just curious.
Okay. Any other additional questions? All right. Are you guys good? Do you want to take a break? Should I keep moving forward?
I was thinking we would take a break between the work session, the workshop, and the actual planning meeting, but you did go through that at a good pace, and we had limited questions. It's only 45 minutes into the meeting. Do people want a little separation from that, or did they want to just get going? Okay, then we will move on, and we'll take a break at another time.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're gonna get to the heart of the meeting right now. And so we are going to do, well, I should have started with my introduction. I guess I have this in my notes here, but just, I know Barb already told you a little bit about me, but I've been with MSBA. This is my 4th year doing searches there. I previously worked with Barb, and she knew that I would be a great fit for this role, and so she kind of recruited me into the position, and I absolutely love this work so much. But I'm the Associate Director of Leadership Development and Executive Search. I do all of my time is spent in executive search and evaluation, so that's where I spend all of my time. Could you guys just share with me just briefly how long you've been on the board? And usually I ask like where you grew up or where you went to high school, just because I want to get a feel from if you're all from the area or if you're not. Would you mind? Yeah.
On the board, it's my 16th year, born and raised, Northfield alumni.
Great.
What is it? 4th year on the board, and I grew up in Minneapolis. So I went to Washburn High School.
Sure.
Go Millers.
Hi, this is my 2nd year, starting with my 2nd year on the board. I grew up in Wisconsin, so in Racine, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I'm working on my 2nd term. I was elected in 2020 and 2024, and I grew up in the Los Angeles area in California.
Hello. It's my 6th year on the board, and I grew up in the South Metro, not Los Angeles.
I'm in my 10th year on the board. I grew up in different spots, but spent some formative years in Minnetonka and graduated from Dundee, Illinois High School.
Thank you.
This is my 4th year on the board, and I grew up in the next town over in Lonsdale, so I never made it too far out.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice to kind of get a feel for who's on the board. Like if we'll have some where almost everybody grew up in the community, and we'll have some where a lot of them are from out. So I like to just kind of get an idea of where we're at here. So thank you for that. So a overview. We talked about this already. The key pieces about the statutes that come into play, of course, is open meeting law and then the Data Practices Act. I'm not going to spend much more time on that right now just because I've already talked about it, and then I'll remind you of the pieces as far as that private data with the applicants when we get closer to the time when you're going to begin viewing them. But the one thing that I didn't talk about already is the board ownership. This is your search. I'm here to assist you through the search. It's not MSBA's search. It's your search. I'm going to be here providing you with different options. I'll give you recommendations. I'll give you options, and I'll give you like the benefits of some of those options and what some of the pitfalls might be that you need to consider. And so that's what my role is to assist you throughout the entire process. But you will be making all of the decisions. We'll be making recommendations for who you, for example, for who you might interview. But again, you will have access to all of those application materials so that you know you're making a fully informed decision along the way. And you as board members will be the only people to view all of those application materials, of course, in addition to MSBA and the service providers. So you'll be the only ones that have all of the information. And so that's why we say don't give that decision-making away, because you are the only ones who will know everything. All right, so let's get into the timeline. So page 2 of the planning meeting packet has the timeline. So I'm gonna go over this pretty quickly because we kind of touched on a lot of it already. So of course, March 6th, that's tonight, our planning meeting. So we'll talk about the timeline, we'll talk about the hiring criteria and the search procedures. We tentatively have starting March 10th, which I believe is Tuesday, opening that public input survey that I talked about, and I have what that looks like coming up in the packet. So we'll open that on March 10th. We're tentatively planning to close it on March 22nd. And then also on March 10th is when we will post the position and it will go live. So we, again, tentatively have that being open from March 10th until April 7th. So a little bit less than a month. I have a note in here for March 18th for the Q&A, but I think I would prefer to, I'm gonna move that up to March 11th. Because March 18th is so close to the end of that deadline for the survey, I'd rather do my Q&A session earlier so that hopefully more people have a chance to watch it. Excuse me. So again, that Q&A session is the one that I'll do on Zoom that will be sent out so that anybody across the district who has questions about the search or wants to know what's happening can view that at any time. We record it and put it on the website. So tentatively, I'm going to put that at 4:00 p.m. or 4:00 p.m. on March 11th. And that's not something that the board needs to attend or go to. In fact, we typically recommend that you don't do it because we want people to feel comfortable asking whatever questions that they want to ask. But we will suggest that you watch the recording of it so that you're aware of the questions that were asked and what they were told during that Zoom session. Yes.
So that's just next Wednesday, and I'm wondering how important it is to have advance notice to people so they can submit questions, and how much time, is that enough time is my question.
Sure. I can push it out a little bit later if we want to. I just want to be able to get the word out, or I want to be able to have it out long enough that it can be a resource for people who are taking the survey. So if we want to push it out, I can double check other dates. I can be pretty flexible with that because it's just me who does it. So I don't need to work on if you think that the district needs a little bit more time to get the word out.
I assume there's a lot of duplication in those questions from search to search. Do you have a set of questions you have in case there isn't a strong response from people in the room?
Yes. So I will do, if anybody submits a question ahead of time, I will answer that during the live session. If anybody submits questions, we have them do it in the chat box so that I can ask it anonymously, because the recording won't show who's attending live. And so we can ask it anonymously and then answer it. And so I'll do that as well. And then I do have frequently asked questions that I'll cover as well, so that we're still kind of hitting the bulk of what people usually want to know. So usually what we do is we share the timeline, we share the vacancy brochure, and we go over the survey. And then we talk about a lot of the aspects of the search so that everybody's clear with the whole process. Yeah. But if you think that we should wait a few days to do the Q&A, we certainly can. I just didn't want to wait until the 18th because that felt like it was really long.
I would want to ask Kelly what her sense is with how informing the parents and various people, what would be a good time.
So we send out that district newsletter after every board meeting, and that would probably put it on sending that newsletter out on Wednesday. So if you wanted to get a few questions, maybe we could do it later in the week, like, maybe Friday. I don't know if that would work, or even, the following Monday or something like that, just so that it gives a couple of days leeway. Otherwise, we would have to send out something separate from the newsletter to get it to the district families.
Thank you for that. I can do just Friday the 13th. Does that sound appropriate? I don't know if that's appropriate, but Friday the 13th, does that feel like a good compromise so that we have a few days to get the word out, and then yet it's early enough that people can watch it before the survey is due? Okay.
Have you done another Friday session? I'm wondering about the participation on a Friday afternoon, and then also the 4 o'clock, I don't have a sense for if that's a good time for other working people or not. I think when we have gatherings here, like district committee meetings, that kind of thing, those are later in the day. What do people think about that? Yeah. But on a Friday, that sounds tough.
Can I ask, do you typically have a lot of people come to the live session, or is it more that people watch it after the fact?
Yeah, it's typically they watch the recording on the website afterwards. Sometimes there will be a few. So we used to have bigger attendance to the live session before we started doing search preview meetings. So search preview meetings, which is the next thing that I was about to talk about, we started doing those with like the district leadership team, maybe the heads of the bargaining units. We want like district-wide leadership to also be in the loop of what's happening. We want everyone to know what's happening throughout the search process. It's all part of the transparency pieces so that they all know what's happening. And so we do these search preview meetings, and so a lot of times the virtual Q&A session used to be live, highly attended by a lot of the staff who want to know what's happening. And so since we started doing the search preview meetings, the live session doesn't get very many attendees. However, we would stop doing them if we didn't see the value in it, and we see that value because we can see how many people watch those recordings. So that's why we continue to do them, because they're put on the district website. And then it also gives, if district staff are getting a lot of questions, or if you're getting a lot of questions, you can direct people to that recording as well and say, please watch this so that you can learn about the search. And then if you continue to have questions, during that, I share my contact information so that people can get a hold of me, so that hopefully it doesn't burden staff or you throughout the process.
I would feel comfortable with Friday at 4 then.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then the next piece is those search preview meetings, and I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable that I do those, and then I would typically work with Kelly and Claudia to determine who those people are and get an invitation sent out to them so that I can do those. And again, we usually just do those virtually so that they can access them from wherever they're at. Are you all comfortable that I do those search preview meetings?
Yep.
Okay, so then tentatively the next time that we would meet would be for interview training and then to discuss the results of that public input survey. And we will also talk about interview questions that evening. Typically, I like to do that close to before your application period closes so that it's really fresh in your head before you start reviewing the applications. And also it gives us, it needs to be enough time between when the survey closes and when the survey closes so that we can do a report or get the report to you in time. And so typically that's around when we like to do it, is towards the end of the application period and before you've had a chance to start reviewing applications. So there's some tentative dates in there, and I'm gonna go through the rest of the timeline, and then I'll kind of turn it over to you guys to discuss what dates might actually specifically work for those. So we tentatively have the application deadline being April 7th, which means that right away the next day, MSBA will start doing our screening and our preliminary verification of references until the selection meeting. And then on April 9th then is when you would all gain access. So on April 7th, it will close that night at 11:59 p.m. April 8th, you'll get an email from Shelby from MSBA, and she will give you information on how to set up your account to be able to access all the application materials. And then on April 9th, she'll send you that alpha identifier list that has all the names of the candidates with their alpha identifier, so that when we come to that next meeting, you're able to discuss these candidates using that alpha identifier. And then she'll also notify you with that email that now you officially have access to all of the application materials. So that's what that timeline is a little bit. And then the next meeting after that is to determine who you're going to interview. We may have to finalize interview questions, but we will have already selected them at the meeting before. But we just kind of finalize them and go over, I'll do a little review of some of the key pieces from the interview training. And then you'll do your first round of interviews. Typically with these first round of interviews, if you're doing them on weekdays, we recommend keeping 2 nights. Typically you want to do them after contract hours so that if you have staff that want to attend, that they're able to. And so we usually will tell you to hold 2 nights in case you're interviewing maybe 6 candidates. Because if you're starting at 4 p.m. and you're interviewing 6 candidates, that can be a really long night. So you want to do them over a period of 2 nights, or potentially you could do like all day on a Saturday. And I'm not saying you have to do it that way. If you prefer to do a Thursday and start at 8 in the morning, you are 100% able to do that. That's just our recommendation. So it's up to you guys as to when you want to do the interviews. But typically we would have you hold two evenings if you're going to do evenings, do two evenings and or 1 long day. And then the next time would be the second round of interviews. Typically during earlier in the day on the second day of interviews, I'll be working with your staff to do district tours. So they'll put on like building tours and maybe potentially like a community tour or something for those last 2, maybe 3 candidates. So they'll give them a district and community tour earlier in the day if you're interviewing in the evening. Otherwise, if you're interviewing earlier in the day, they'll do them the day before. Then you would begin the contract negotiations, and we put in here board designee, but if you usually do it as a full board, I would change that, and we'd want to set a date for when that would first begin. And then you'll want to set a date to approve the employment contract, and that will kind of come once we know when your second round of interviews are going to be, and then once you select your second round of interview, or that date for your second round of interview, you want to see when your next regularly scheduled meeting would be. If it's close enough, you can just use that and add this as an agenda item. However, like let's say your regular scheduled meeting would be like on the 3rd Monday, but you're doing round 2 the 4th Monday of the month before, you don't want to let it sit that long. And so you might want to have a special meeting just to get that employment contract approved, because it's a courtesy to the person's district that they're coming from, but also a lot can happen in 3 weeks in the search world. So it's important to try to move that forward as fast as you can. And if you don't already have a meeting scheduled, it can literally be a 3-minute meeting where you come in, call the meeting to order, make the motion to approve the employment contract and adjourn for the most part. So it can be a really short, brief meeting to get that taken care of. All right, and then your new superintendent would begin on July 1st, and then we would come back in the fall to do that transition workshop. All right, so I am going to turn it over to Claudia. Do you want to facilitate discussion around selecting the highlighted dates?
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to go to the bottom there, April or May TBD 2026 board designee begins negotiation of employment contract, because Amy, you had said something about we'll either have a designee, or will we have the whole board, or we'll have some of the board doing the negotiation piece. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, so typically it would be, not always, but sometimes it's usually the board chair. And so normally what you would have, and I say normally, I say typically, every district does it their own way, what works best. A lot of times what happens is you already kind of have a draft contract ready to go, so going into round 2, so that once you guys select who you want, once your board has selected who you want to enter into contract negotiations with, you can, literally email them the contract that evening for them to begin to review. So that's typically how it is. And then you just set up a time to discuss with them, if they're accepting it, if they're negotiating, or whatever that looks like from that point.
Okay, because I would envision that we would have input into that contract, set those parameters, either as a whole board or as, ad hoc. But then we would have our director of finance go through the negotiations with the candidate. That's how I was thinking about it. Do people have an opinion about that? that Val would do, she would, in the way that we typically do our negotiations, we set parameters, and then we have a negotiations committee, and then Val is the lead negotiator. In this case, it would just be Val with the parameters that we would give her. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Is it unusual since we are the board hiring the candidate and it's our only employee and that the director of finance would be working under this person to be negotiating?
That would be my concern just a little bit, is that it would be her supervisor. And so you might not want to have her doing the actual negotiating.
But we would discuss parameters beforehand, then the designee is just saying, we have this range, we have this ability, which Val would have input on to know financially how we can handle this in the years to come.
Absolutely. I would suggest somebody from the board with Val.
Okay, sure.
Is what I would suggest, and then you're doing the negotiating, but she's there kind of also understanding and knowing and can help with, if they're negotiating something else, she can help you come up with what does that total look like.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, I might just to not have that, that initial relationship. Maybe, if you would like another board member to help you with that or something like that.
Yeah.
Happy to.
Yeah, and I think the recommendation too was to maybe limit the number of people so it doesn't become a quorum situation and a posting of the meeting and that kind of thing. So between 1 and 3 board members to sit with the candidate to review that contract.
Yes, if you're able to, do you guys have I think it's policy 213, do your subcommittees operate in open meeting law? Okay.
So you're talking about once you have a candidate, the final contract to work on? So I mean, what would typically protocol mean? I think you should probably have a subcommittee of 3 with the chair and chair's discretion maybe, and 2 other people, then to make a recommendation to the board along with the
Yeah,
finance
and then
chair.
the
That's
board
what
will
I would.
sit, and the board will set the parameters for that committee or if I do it or if I have a committee. So we'll together set those parameters too.
We should check. I think it's policy 203, and that does define subcommittee as open meeting in our policy 203. I looked. So. Just point of fact.
We don't have 213, but we might still have some of those pieces that you were talking about in 213 in a different policy is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, it's in 203. Bottom.
Excuse me, so what has been your experience then with subcommittees then bringing back recommendations or working with that? Or where is that in the process? And is it typically 3 or what is the number?
For the negotiation piece?
Well, negotiation or just having a subcommittee to work on other things relative to this process.
Sure. So typically, there's not a subcommittee that works on this process because you as the board, this is your only employee. So we recommend that you all participate. A lot of the work piece is what I'm doing to keep you guys from having to be bogged down with a lot of extra work. And so typically you don't have a subcommittee for the search. Sometimes
Really wasn't talking about the search, I'm
Okay.
talking about the
the
negotiation.
negotiation piece, it really varies by district. A lot of times it's, there's a lot of times, yes, there is a committee that does the digging, does the looking at as far as like what is the district able to do, and understanding the ins and outs of the insurance piece and what those are going to cost. And so typically it is like your director of finance, and then you have the model contract. And you would want to have, if you're veering off of the model contract, we recommend having your attorney then also look through it.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, we'll have his designee. Either that'll be me or I will connect with the board members about that. Okay. Yep. We can go then to board meets for interview training and to discuss public input. And those dates are April 1st, 3rd, 6th, 7th, or 8th to meet on the interview training. And so the application is going to close on the 7th. We will review applications on the 9th. So these are dates in between those two. Did you have a insight?
Yeah, I just have a question about how long that meeting would be usually.
So it's typically an hour and a half to 2 hours, but it depends on how many questions there are.
Okay, because we do have a meeting already scheduled on the 6th to accept any bids or go, and I'm wondering if we can combine since we'll already be here?
That's a 2-hour meeting that's scheduled. I don't know if it'll go 2 hours though.
To approve bids.
Yeah, but we also have a oversight meeting that afternoon for 3 of us for the Reimagine High School, so.
I'd have to check with Sal to see how long that those bid approvals take. I'm not sure that they take a super long time, but I could double check on that.
And they set aside 2 hours for that.
I think I just put an amount of time on your calendar. I don't think I really knew how long they were actually gonna take. I just put a meeting time on there.
Yeah.
So,
I think it'd be difficult to schedule because 3 of us already have a meeting from 4 to 5. So you couldn't do it beforehand. And it's an hour and a half anyway, so we can't schedule a meeting without a definitive
And
start
if,
time.
and I hear what you're saying, and I agree, but now I'm wondering, Kelly, if we're going to have that, those bids, do you think we'll have an oversight meeting the hour before?
possibly not. We could request to cancel it.
I would also ask Sal how long it could take, because I seem to remember when we did it for Greenville Park, and Jeff, tell me if you remember it, but it was like pretty quick, like, half an hour or so that I think it was even part of a general agenda that we had
My
for a
other
regular
understanding
meeting.
is it's maybe not all of the bids that day either, so it might not take a super long time. So I can double check and see how long that will take.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe there's a preference because we're already gathered and it's already on your calendars to do it on the 6th. We could, if that sounds like Sal can't give us a good, estimate, and I don't necessarily know that she can, but say the meeting was 40 minutes, say it was 5:15 to 6 about. Do people feel like they could tackle another 2 hours after that? So we could have it as, if we can get some kind of answer that, sounds like it's gonna be a shorter meeting, then we can have the 6th. Otherwise, what do people think about the 7th or the Tuesday or the Wednesday, the 7th or the 8th? Let's see, the 7th. There's middle school conferences on the 7th. And the 8th is a Wednesday. Any preferences if the 6th doesn't work out?
I'm fine for both.
And the 7th again has the middle school conferences. I don't know if that impacts.
There's also middle school conferences on the 31st.
There's
so you
usually
get
2
two
days
options.
when they do
Yeah.
that, so, yeah.
All right. Okay, so we'll hope for the 6th. Kelly will check with Sal, see if she can give us an estimate of how long that meeting is, and also to cancel possibly the oversight meeting for Ben, Corey, and myself. And then we'll keep the 7th as an option, and that will be a 6 o'clock meeting, 6 to 8, 7:30, 8. And the 6th will have a similar timeline then, starting at 5:15, and then the meeting to do the interview training right after, likely going till about 8. Okay. The next date to consider is the board meets to determine the finalists, and that'll be mid-April. We will have interview questions and procedures at that time. So that'll be, Amy Jordan, that'll be a interview questions. That'll be the first time we're looking at interview questions, or will we finish that work on the April 6th, 7th?
The earlier meeting is when you will select your interview questions for round 1. On this next meeting that we're looking at, I will show you I'll have them in the form so that you can see. And then if we were doing any wordsmithing to questions or shifting any of them, I'll bring those final versions to that meeting. So we discuss them, but we're not going through the full selection process.
And how long would that meeting it typically take?
That one's about the same. Almost all of them are about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on questions.
You can look at your calendars. The 15th is a Wednesday.
Can I add in, as far as these next few meetings that go, my recommendation as far as timing wise is to try to get them done within a 2-week period. So for example, if you select candidates one day, you want to try to interview them within a week. And then once you do round 1 interviews, you want to try to do round 2 within another week. Just to kind of, again, their names go public. That's a long time for potential candidates' districts to be in limbo. And of course, it's a lot of extra time where you guys will be receiving feedback from people about the candidates. And so it's a really long time. So you kind of want to do those pretty close together.
Maybe we should work backwards then, figure out when we want to do the interview dates, whether we want to do it as a full day or whether 2 evenings, and then sort of move backwards from there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have a strong preference for one format or the other? I would prefer the one day, whether it's a Saturday or a work day. But obviously, whatever works for the board. And then I also wonder, Ben, about your schedule and how you're feeling about that. And not sure, Amy, if you'll have some travel as well.
I would
wanna
say
speak to that?
just, I think going a long day, kind of by the end you get to the last set of candidates, kind of does a disservice. Like everybody's kind of worn out, and research says that they score worse. You don't want.
I would agree.
The alternative, I hear what you're saying, and they both have their disadvantages because we're talking about 2 evenings.
Right. No, yeah.
And we're still doing, whatever you did all day, plus the evening interviewing those candidates, and then you come back the next day and do it again.
Yeah.
So they both have pluses and minuses. And it's really whatever people want to do. Amy Jordan, if you have some insight, or, you're right, Ben, it is a long day of interviews, but 2 evenings also. And the second evening, do we also do additional work?
Yes. So after round 1, let's say you're interviewing 6 candidates for round 1. You'll do 3 one night, and then you'll do a recess. It's 1 meeting for the whole round of interviews. So you'll do a recess, and then you reconvene the next day at whatever time you're going to start. You would do then those next 3 candidates, and then you have a break, and then you come back to deliberate. After deliberations, we finalize round 2 questions and decide which questions you're going to ask in round 2. So that can get to be a little later night. Although if you're only interviewing 5 candidates, that moves that all up. Or if you're interviewing 4, that moves that all up. So it kind of depends on what your actual pool is. We like to hold for 6 just in case.
And do we schedule about an hour for each candidate?
Correct.
Good question.
Could we do like, just to kind
Yeah,
of
we
go
could throw it out
crazy
there.
here,
Yeah.
like Friday evening and then Saturday morning? That kind of,
Open to that?
it'd be like the 24th, 25th.
Open to that? That feel?
That gives us a little more time when
Gives
they're
you a little
done.
rest, and then Saturday.
25th is Earth Day.
What's that?
I said the 25th is Earth Day.
I'll have to make sacrifices.
I'll recycle something.
That works for me.
Is that kind of pushing it late, though? I guess it's not
It's kind of right in the middle of that date set.
of the first round.
Yeah.
And we do have a board meeting on Monday, so,
The 27th, yeah.
which is fine with me, but it just is a bunch all
Yeah.
pushed together.
And Kelly, I see that you have something all morning on the 24th. I don't know if that's going to impact our work or if that's like,
I have a conference in St. Cloud until noon, so I could be here on Friday night. That'd be no problem.
yeah, and I don't know, Amy Jordan, where Kelly will fit into some of these pieces here. So I don't know if you want to speak to that. Do we need to worry that Kelly's gone? Not worry, but know that she's gone Friday morning for the 24th, 25th?
I think it would be more important on round 2 because she'll be helping facilitate, or not necessarily facilitate, but with the tours. She'll be
Yeah.
like the contact if for some reason
That's
somebody's
helpful
not
to
where
know.
they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that would be more important. I think she probably wants to be present for the interviews would be my guess. So.
They'll be recorded, so.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking then at Ben's suggestion was April 24th is a Friday evening and Saturday morning, the 25th. And Maggie was saying, is that kind of late in the process? Like date-wise, what do you think, Amy Jordan?
I mean, I would say the sooner you can do it, the better, but you need to do what works for the board. And so your candidates will make that work for sure. You also don't want to, the longer that it's out there, there's the potential to lose a candidate at any given time. So it's better to do it earlier, but you need to do what works for your board.
So I think I hear you saying if we're reviewing applications on the 9th, that we should be doing the interview training pretty quickly. And then the first round interviews maybe in that 18, 20, 21st, 22nd dates, as opposed to the 24, 25.
Well, could we do the 17th, which is a Friday, and the 18th, which is a Saturday, or is that
The
not? The 17th is not
17th.
available.
The 17th is arts a la carte, 5:30 to 9, if that
Okay.
makes a difference for people. That you know, that'll impact us versus the community. So, you know, if you're okay being tied up, you know, we gotta get this work done, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't love the idea of conflicting with a major community activity in the district. Would we have the interviews here
That,
or somewhere else?
wherever it works for you guys. Yeah, I mean, this room is definitely can handle interviews, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we're still looking at that board conducts first round of interviews, trying to work backward a little bit. We're looking now at Friday the 17th and Saturday the 18th.
Well, we can't determine finalists on the 17th and expect people to be here the next day if I'm following the conversation. Like, we can't call them Friday and say, show up tomorrow.
I'm kind of going with what Ben suggested, having Friday evening and Saturday morning, because that might actually accommodate the applicants better too. You know, some might, and it means that we get a break, but we also have not a whole lot of time between the interviews, so
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll remember them better.
Yeah, it's still that same Friday, Saturday, but it's either 17, 18, or 24, 25. And Corey was making a point about the timing on the 17, 18 is very fast.
Well, that's when we can meet to determine the finalists, and the next weekend is when we try to interview them.
17th is arts a la carte?
Yeah.
I mean, we could meet Thursday the 16th, select our finalists, and then it would be 8 days out and do Friday and Saturday. I mean, it's an extra day, but we're picking them right for the weekend. They might want to consult with whoever's in their life to discuss that and then get back to us Monday, Tuesday.
And so I just want to make sure that I heard you say that right. So you're suggesting the 16th to determine the finalists. That's a 2-hour meeting. And then invite the first round interviews to happen when? Say that part again.
Friday the
24
24th, yeah. And then
and 25th.
finish it on Saturday.
Also, I'm remembering now, the brochure has those dates on it. And so when people apply, they will plug those dates into their calendar. So they'll, you know, you were talking about short turnaround, yes, but they'll also have that in their calendar.
Right, I'm just
set
saying we
aside.
can't reasonably expect the next day, right?
Yeah.
Regardless if they plug them in or not.
Oh, I'm just saying it's going to be in their calendar. But I'm fine with the 24th, 25th for the first round interviews.
Yeah, if I got a call at 2 o'clock on a Friday to come to an interview on,
I'm just saying that people will have it in their calendars
understand that,
already,
but that's-
so they've already been, they're expecting it. So it's not that, short notice if they already have it in their calendar. But-
okay.
That sounds good
so
to me.
Thursday the
16th.
16th?
Others who haven't spoken?
The
Then we
6th,
said 24th and 25th?
I think we should keep those at a 6 PM if that feels right. Do you want to move it up a little? 5:30, 6? Does that feel good for other people, 6?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be April 16th at 6, and then the first round interviews, Friday, the 24th, and Saturday, the 25th. What do you?
I think we have to start earlier than 6.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out Friday first, I think. We'll have to, can we do it a little bit earlier, like 5 o'clock? Friday? Because we'll go 3 hours that first time.
Yeah, if you guys can make it work, I would suggest 4 o'clock. If you're gonna be done by 11 on the 25th, I would maybe look at selecting a different date, because if they start interviewing at 8 or 9, and you have 3 interviews plus a break plus deliberations,
And
you
then
would miss that.
deliberation is that piece, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't want
but-
you to miss that.
And just throwing this out, Amy, would there be a scenario where we would do the deliberation after a break? Could you do your commitment and then come back and deliberate, or do you recommend against that?
No, you could do that. How long is your commitment for? 3 hours. So then you could do a 3-hour break.
Just throwing it out there, you know,
Yeah, we gotta-
we'll feel it out.
We gotta manage it.
Yeah, it makes it seem like it's 3.
But if those are the days that work, we have to make a little
Could we
adjustment.
start in the
In the afternoon.
afternoon
How's that?
on Saturday at like 3 or 2 or, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
math.
2 or 3, yeah.
Or 1.
Are we doing math here? No.
So 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And make sure your mics are on, please. We are recording it.
So maybe 3 o'clock on Saturday and we'd be here.
Does that feel doable, Jenny? 3 o'clock? 3 on Saturday. And so if we had the if we did have 6 candidates, then the 6th candidate is interviewing at 5.
Mhm.
One quick thing to point out about the 25th, I don't know if it affects anybody here, that's prom. I have a tentative date for Grand March at 3 o'clock. I'm not sure if that's the actual time of it. If that doesn't affect anybody, there's no big deal, but I just wanted to point that out just in case it does.
Yeah, thank you.
2
Tom?
board members, I guess, that would have. I was not
Well, I mean, there
pointing
could
to
be
you.
nephews, friends.
I don't know much about prom. Would community members feel like they can't come to the interviews because we had scheduled it at the same time, or is it really just like those are the
Oh, they
students
love
there?
going.
Or,
They
They're not
love
gonna
it.
chime in on that.
They love going.
I just don't know, do parents go to this event?
There's a grand march that they go to
Okay.
type thing. What is that? What time is that?
That's 3 to 4 is what
I
you
don't have a definitive time. Last year it was at 3 o'clock, and I'm not sure if that's the same this year or if it's a different time. So I just put 3 o'clock on the calendar just because I knew that prom is that day. I just don't know exactly what time that's at.
I'm not sure there's going to be a huge number of people who see this as a conflict, because that's already just like the junior and senior parents who are probably less invested in who the superintendent is anyway.
It's a good point, but yeah.
I kind of like the idea of having later on a Saturday, because that means any applicants coming in from out of town can look around the town and see what it's like and get a sense of that.
Okay, so do people feel good with 3 o'clock on Saturday, the 25th?
Yes.
All right. And we already picked that 16th. So now we're back down to hold second round of interviews. And if we are having those first rounds, the 24th and the 25th, and Amy, you were suggesting between first and second round, what would be a good rule of thumb?
I would say again, within a week. Yeah, definitely within a week. You want to give it, you wouldn't want to necessarily do it like the next day, which you wouldn't anyways, because it's a Saturday too. I mean, a Monday, but keeping in mind that we want a couple of board members to do some additional reference checking. So making sure there's at least a few days in there. But yes.
How does the 29th look to people? That's Wednesday. It gives us Monday, Tuesday for reference checks. Keeps the process moving.
Works for me.
Should be fine.
Yeah, I should be able to do that.
Are we looking at 6 p.m.?
4 or 5, I think, if possible.
I think earlier.
Friday at 4, yeah, so 4.
How about
Can you do that? Can people do that Wednesday at 4?
29?
The 29th.
Yes.
yes?
Yes.
So 4 o'clock on the 29th, and then it was also going to be 4 o'clock on the 25th. Friday the 25th, right?
24th, I think.
The 20th
Then 3
Yes.
o'clock the 25th.
and 3 o'clock. Yes, good, thank you. All right.
4. 4 on the, sorry,
The
4
Saturday.
on the 24th and 3 o'clock on the 25th, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And then 4 o'clock on the 29th?
Yes.
Okay, and then what would be your regularly scheduled board meeting in May?
The 11th?
Okay,
Monday, the 11th, and then Tuesday, the 26th, the Tuesday after Memorial Day.
I think I would recommend that you do a special meeting to approve the contract instead of waiting the 2 weeks. I think you should try to set a special meeting date to approve the contract.
And that's only 5 minutes because it's already been negotiated at that point and agreements made. Okay.
Yep.
Just as a reminder to the group.
How about on the 4th?
May the 4th.
That's my
Star Trek Day.
birthday. It's my birthday.
Okay, so that would be Monday, May 4th, and it shouldn't be a very long meeting. We could, looks like, what do we have on the 4th?
Oversight.
Can I ask Amy a question? How much time should we allow in case there is negotiation? Because if we pick Wednesday to offer, and well, hold on,
So normally-
Wednesday to a Monday, is that appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, typically you'll send the, you know, what you're offering, that contract that night, and you usually ask them to give you an answer within a day or two.
Okay.
Is pretty typical, and they may then negotiate, but again, if the parameters are already set, you,
It can move fast.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, typically, especially that time of year, it does move pretty quickly.
Okay.
So that would be appropriate. If for some reason that you haven't come to an agreement yet, you could just cancel that and then just set one, like, as soon as you think you're gonna have to cancel it and just set one for 3 days later as soon as you
Sure.
can.
Okay.
And this one would be a special meeting. And we could, and it'd be a short meeting. We could try to do a 5:15 on Monday, the 4th.
We have a reimagined meeting, so 5:15 is why Claudia's suggesting that.
Okay, so 5:15, Monday, the 4th, to approve a contract. Any other thoughts people feel?
Jeff, all those dates are good for you?
Okay,
Congratulations, that's the hardest part of this whole meeting, so it
Let's hope
always
we-
is the hardest part.
I was hoping you were going to say the hardest part of the whole process.
Sure. Okay, so I have all of those dates written down, and I will update the timeline. Because we want to post this on Tuesday, do you know when you'll know about the 6th or the 7th for that, the meeting for interview training?
I'll get it confirmed over the weekend or on Monday morning. I'll get right back to you on it.
thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Okay, and then, so then I'll send you all the final timeline once I have that confirmed, just to make sure you all have the correct dates. I give you like one last chance. Do you see anything else that needs to be changed? And then I'll send it to Kelly to get posted on the district website along with the vacancy brochure. So moving along to the vacancy brochure, so you'll see the next 2 pages of the packet are those of the vacancy brochure. I just had a quick question for you regarding your strategic plan document. So you have this 1-page strategic plan document. Would you like me to include that as part of our vacancy brochure? So page 1 is this, page 2 is your strategic plan, and page 3 then is the leadership profile?
I think that would be appropriate. Of our strategic plan, we have that part, yeah.
I will certainly do that. So it'll be a 3-page overall then together. Okay, so then looking at the vacancy brochure, did anybody do you see any edits, or do you think anything's missing from the points of pride or the information about the community? Do you have any questions on the pieces on the first page?
So what level of wordsmithing are you looking for?
I think that depends. No. What do you have a suggestion?
Well, I'm just looking at the about the community section where with all of the subpoints, there should be sort of a parallel structure, and some of them are full sentences and others are not sentences at all, but they still have periods. And so I just would like that to, since we are an educational institution, to be properly done.
Absolutely. So if we do them all as sentences, clean up to,
And with parallel structure as much as you can.
And could you add on that second prompt point, home to 2 colleges, that it would say St. Olaf College and Carleton College?
yes.
I have to say, I really like your points of pride. It made me very proud.
Well, I'm glad, but I'd love to take credit for it, but Kelly here put a lot of work into those. So let's give credit where it's due. Nice work.
Kelly, yeah, thank you, Kelly. She worked really hard on those.
And Val.
In the, by the numbers section, it says the principals / assistant principals or deans, and then it's 5/3. I guess I was initially confused about what that meant, the slash, and then I figured it means the 3 is assistant principals or deans. But is that sort of typically how you list that?
Yes. Is one of those 3 a dean, or do you? So 2 of them are assistant principals and 1 is a dean. So yeah, I mean, that is typical how we have it.
Maybe we say and rather than or. That might be.
Or a comma? I don't know. I was like, oh, do we have a fractional person?
Yeah.
But, well,
It's true.
positive, yeah. So that was just one comment.
Till about a month ago.
If I have room, I'll separate them into 2 separate points. If I can fit it on there, I'll make a note too.
But I think and would make more sense than or, because it's not
Principals and,
assistant principal
then 5
and deans.
and.
Yeah,
To be inclusive
it's
on the 3.
inclusive, not.
Yeah,
It's not an option.
yeah.
Kelly, I assume you provided these numbers? I mean, I know they're pretty straightforward, but
I had some help from other departments.
I just had a question concerning the 5 principals. How does Daryl roll into that? Should he be included? Should it be 6 since we have the LC?
That's what we were trying to figure out as well. Do we include him as a principal? Do we consider him a director? I did count him as part of like the leadership team. So
Small thing, I don't know if that
same
changes
with
the
same
application
with
process
Erin,
for
you know,
anyone, but
she runs the
Yeah, that's true.
NCEC, you know.
Okay, just curious.
On the second bullet point, on the second prompt point in the points of pride, how do people feel if instead of saying every district building except Northfield Middle School, what if it said something along the lines of most of the district buildings have been updated, something where it doesn't say except the middle school? And I understand
Well-
we're trying to be very transparent on that.
And the middle school was built in like 2004, so it's not even that old. I know,
Correct.
so maybe we can sort of say all updated in a new middle school built in 2004 or something like that. So people get a sense that hasn't been renovated, but it's because it's still
Yeah.
new-ish,
And we
newish.
definitely wanted to
I'm
communicate
not sure
that, so I hear
21
what you're
years
doing.
old is new, man.
And the Spring Creek renovations are relatively minor. It's still an older
Yeah.
building. I actually think accept is better than most because most implies there's more than one that's not included in that, and this is only one of 7 buildings.
Mm-mm.
So I actually think it's okay that way, but any good candidate's gonna be looking at our district website and looking at our buildings
Mhm.
anyway. So I mean, I think this gets the point across personally, but certainly open for suggestions.
If there's room, I could add after except NMS, comma, built in 2004. If there's room, I could add that, which might help explain why it hasn't been, because it's a newer building to
Oh, sure.
begin with. I'm not 100% sure that I'll have room, but I will definitely try, because that'll help clarify that. But again, just as Corey mentioned, this is to definitely pique their interest
Yeah.
for candidates. The people who care more about these things are gonna be staff and community, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the details aren't as important for the candidates. They're just looking at these to know it's available, or to know it's open, get an idea, but then they'll do their vetting of the district as
Yeah.
well. So it's not as important in that regard. It's more, I think the people who care about the details are gonna be more the community and staff.
Yeah.
So.
Have you considered size A font? I'm joking.
Yes.
Do we need to mention anything about being in Rice County, or I'm thinking, because we're an interesting district in that we're actually in a rural county, but we have,
We're in 3 counties.
what was that?
We're in 3 counties.
Yeah, we're in 3 counties, predominantly Rice County, but they're all 3 counties are, the other counties are even more rural than, well, yeah, that's true. But I'm just trying to give them a flavor of, we're part rural and we're certainly part college town and part small town, and it's a really interesting mix of people.
I would assume most candidates will be in state, so I feel like
Yeah,
we'll
I
have a
think,
sense for Northfield.
yeah.
Again, I don't know. I'm pretty satisfied with what's in front of us.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the bullets that I had to pare down, and I felt terrible doing it, she had a great written bullet about one of the best things of Northfield is the people, right? So it was really, really well written, but we were trying to narrow it down, and I'm like, well, we want them to have a feel for the school and a feel for the overall community, so.
If we sell too hard, they're gonna get concerned.
True story. Okay. So overall, are we pretty comfortable with the few minor tweaks that were mentioned?
One other possible tweak is, since we do have that interesting situation with Daryl and Aaron, I mean, should we have by the numbers, like saying the leadership group is so many people? Because I hate to not count Daryl and Aaron, because they both are very important. And we do have more in the leadership group than just the principals and assistant principal. So what do you think, Kelly? I'm asking you.
Do you use any of this data, like when you're talking to the candidates at all, to explain to them, like, or in like the job posting or anything like that, where we would want to put, no, okay. Because I recall a question asking like how many people are are our superintendent's direct reports. So that, you know, I included them in there, and then I like, when I listed, you know, the people that work, you know, in the district, on the district team, I included, you know, like Daryl and Aaron, and I like broke it down by each different, you know, like each person's like title or their job description or their job, you know, job name. So I'm not sure, you know, if we have to get really in the weeds on that, or if that's something that we would maybe start explaining to our candidates when they get here for the second round interviews and they go through that, we take them around the district and we show them, you know, what the buildings look like and what the teams look like. Maybe that's at the point where we would, you know, really start to narrow that down.
Absolutely. Is it kind of spelled out on the website as well? Because they'll be looking and reviewing staff structure on the website.
Well, maybe instead of the principals / assistant principals or deans, if we're worried about space and we're not willing to go to a legal size paper, that we can just put leadership team and then put the number on the leadership of the
Would that
leadership.
change it dramatically if you do leadership team? Will the number be much larger?
You'll be including like special education department and I mean, you wouldn't want to forget someone, so I'd almost rather do less or just summarize it than to forget one of those very important people.
Plus, leadership varies from district to district. This is pretty well defined.
I guess to me, it's not, I don't really care.
I'm going back and forth too, Amy. Like I was wanting something more along the lines, and then I was feeling like you're right. People that are applying to be superintendent can read that well.
Well, if
where
you
I
have room
cannot.
for another line, I would like to request a leadership team and a number. If you don't have room for another line, and I know it's tight, then just stick with the principals and assistant principals.
So are you preferring leadership team and then keep principals and assistant principals and deans all on the same line? Or do you want me to separate? Because we had talked about if there was room, we were going to separate those onto two different
I would
lines.
say separate them if possible. If you're going to use it, separate it. If you can't find room and you don't want to go to 6-point type, then just you can skip the leadership team, because that's just
Leave it
my
as
thing.
is.
Because I think Daryl and Aaron and the various other people that on the team are also very important, and I hate to not have them be part of this.
Thank you. Okay, so then the second page will be the strategic plan page then, and then this next page, so the third page of your vacancy brochure then will be the leadership profile and then the salary and benefits. As far as the leadership profile, so this was developed using the results of that hiring criteria survey that you all took, which is on the page directly after that. And so you can see the things that rose to the top for your board as the highest priorities. And so then this was developed from that. And so I want to give you the opportunity to make sure that you read through this, see if you're all in agreement that this would be the leadership profile that we want to use, or if there's something else in the hiring criteria that you looked at that you think really needs to be included. I give you that opportunity to make that case to the rest of your board, or if you want to move forward with the current leadership profile.
So Amy, just to restate that, these 6 things will be kind of pulled forward into the posting as the leadership profile. These as written, is that what you're saying?
Yes, so how they're written on this page, this is the vacancy brochure. So this is what is actually posted. So this is what we'll use that will go on MSBA's website. These 3 pages will be linked on our website. It gets posted through MASA and EdPost, and then it's linked also in Revelis as well. So the hiring criteria survey is the survey that you took, and that'll be an apples to apples question that's part of that public input survey. But using that information is what created this leadership profile.
Gotcha.
So if there's specific wording in there that you don't care for, or if you don't feel like it fits what you guys selected, we want to make sure that we correct that now, because once this goes live, this is what we use throughout the rest of the process.
Right, so 15 leads with honesty, et cetera, that transformed into the first bullet, ethical leadership, basically, if I crosswalk that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I like these attributes, but I'm having a problem where it's listed in two separate of the attributes, district priorities. Is there something else that we can add or revise? Because, I mean, unless you list those priorities, it just seems kind of strange that you would just say priorities when the person has no clue. Or maybe we can point them, I mean, to where they are listed. Because otherwise, why would you have priorities on here listed twice if they don't have any idea what they are?
So should we?
Talking about under team leadership. I'm trying to find where you're mentioning.
In the intro paragraph, I see district priorities, and then under team leadership, I see district priorities. Are those the two references?
And then also under fiscal stewardship.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it's in
Yeah, I
three
was trying to-
places.
Yep.
Catch up.
Yep. Yes.
And so maybe those priorities, what we really mean is our benchmark and strategic commitments. And this is going to be page 2. So maybe instead of using priorities, there's a reference to the strategic plan.
Yeah, well, then you'd have to use the language of strategic plan or strategy instead of priorities, unless we have a list of priorities somewhere too.
Yeah, I think we should reference the strategic plan since that's specifically part of the vacancy brochure.
And
Yep.
also because I think, I mean, priorities change too when we see issues come up and we have school board meetings and we, change or revise policy and add programming and things like that. Add, strengthen our departments. So those priorities are going to be changing too.
I guess I don't view that as a static set of priorities, where it's just saying that district will, to your point, they will always have priorities. So you're looking for somebody that can effectively advance whatever the priorities are.
So maybe then change the wording to, I don't know, what,
I would say district benchmarks and strategic commitments, because that refers
That's-
back
yeah.
to our strategic plan.
it just seemed a little fuzzy.
And then with these two, I think maybe dependent on maybe this marks.
I don't think, Jenny, are you saying it needs to be changed everywhere on there, or can we say district priorities somewhere?
No, I mean, I think the word priority is, like Ben said, we have them.
Yeah.
And we always will have them. But it just seemed fuzzy, like, if that's so important, you're putting it twice here on the profile, but what are they? And it just seemed fuzzy, that's all.
Sure, yeah. I think, I know you're writing it over there, but it could also say identify and advance district priorities or something like that. I mean, I don't know, we also help identify those, but I think that's another way of saying, like, that is part of the job, is determining or receiving district priorities and then advancing them.
Being receptive to them, maybe.
Yeah, I think just state it once, maybe in that first paragraph's fine, but then just use different wording in the bullet points.
I'm also thinking on that opening paragraph, we connect our vision to just every presentation. So maybe on that opening paragraph, it says, and advance the district vision. And then it's okay to use priorities after that, or have one of those priorities changed to strategic commitments and benchmarks.
I like the word vision and benchmarks.
Good ideas.
I find the first paragraph to be kind of like blah, 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 blah.
I was going to read it anyways, to be honest with you. So,
Because it's like, okay, of course we want someone who's a strong executive leader, and of course we want someone with sound judgment. We're not looking for someone with unsound judgment, and of course we want an ethical leader. And then we talk about ethical leadership below. I would love to have that be a little more exciting, I guess, than that would give people more information or be more directly connected to our vision. I don't mind the 6 areas that we came up with, because that is something that we all sort of voted on independently, and seems to be a direction that we're looking at. And I was impressed with actually how we all were fairly similar. And so I think that's great. Does that happen often, that the boards are looking for similar things? But just that first paragraph, I think, could be spiced up a bit, or what makes us different? What makes us interesting and unique?
Okay, so I'm hearing a few different things. So I wanna make sure I have clarity for moving forward, because again, we want this to post on Tuesday. So if I kind of shorten it up and spice up that intro paragraph a little bit, maybe using some wording from the vision. I do have the vision listed right here in this big box. So maybe we want to move that above, do we think, and then move the other stuff down? Because I don't know that we want to have the exact same wording and right next to each other there either.
I guess I wouldn't overthink it. I mean, in all honesty, nobody's going to really read
Right,
that
right.
much of this anyways to apply for the job. They already know if they're going to apply or not. Like, this is just kind of pro forma. So,
Yeah, I don't want to.
I would say this isn't your first rodeo on that. So what do other districts do to look that at? I mean, if I'm applying for something, I'm just going to read through this, and I picked Northfield, I picked whatever else. I'm just going to read it, and I'm going to get my application in.
Yeah, the things that the most people look at are the bullets. That's what they're looking at the majority of. So I mean, I was also a little concerned that it was too long, because once we get in the salary and benefits piece, so that actually ends up being a little bit longer, that I was worried I wasn't going to have room for all of the stuff on the right, or that I would have to make the mission smaller. And so maybe I shorten this top section up. The financial highlights might have to be moved down. All of that stuff happens once I know what the final stuff is. So the formatting is likely going to shift, so it won't be exact anyways. And then we get those salary and benefits in there.
Will this be public information also on our website so they can see it? Because if it is, then that's kind of the main reason that I was a little bit more attentive to it, because I just want our community to see it and really, like Amy was saying, you don't want something that's just blah, blah, or,
Right.
I mean, I would want it to look good for our community too. I mean, because they're looking at it, knowing that we have a huge part in it, us as board members, and if it's not representative of kind of our professional and way that we like things done, and I think that is, because like Jeff said, that you just don't really read it, or the candidates might not really read it, but which is absolutely true. But if our community reads it, I just really want them to see it shine.
I think the initial 3 comments about finding some diversity and explaining the district priorities were good, and I think maybe refining that opening paragraph is fine. But this is pretty standard job copy. I think it's reflective of our priorities based on the survey we responded to. I worry that we're getting a little too pedantic here and trying to define every little word. I mean, the words are the words, and they say what the job is. And to Jeff's point, candidates are going to apply because they know about our reputation. They want to work here. This is for a superintendent position. So I hear the public perception piece too, but I think this is close enough. And I think we could spend 3 hours refining word by word, but I don't think it's a good use of anyone's time either. I think it gets the job done the way it is personally, with maybe some of those initial comments. So there's another direction that from different board members. So
we trust you to spit, shine, and polish it based on what we've said here.
Okay.
So is your goal tonight then for us to give you finalized copy so then it can go out Tuesday, or is this something you can follow up by email, or is that not appropriate.
Nope, that is appropriate. So typically what I would normally do is take your feedback, make those changes, and I send it out and say, this is the last, like, here's your final copy. Here's the deadline that I need to hear of any other changes, and then we're gonna move forward because we need to get it posted. So that's typically what I do, and I do that by email, and then we bring the final product to it'll be at the next meeting and and then throughout, well, it's posted all over too, so.
Oh, and then referring to the mission, I think having it referenced in the opening paragraph is good, and it's clearly highlighted there, so
Yeah.
I don't think that needs to be duplicated in case there was any confusion about that.
And it should say school district vision.
Instead of mission.
Yes, that's what we call it, vision.
My husband and I were having fun one day and just sort of pulled together a more fun job description. This is before we saw this and knew what the whole process would be. I'm going to just take the liberty of reading it and seeing if any of it sounds fun or interesting, but it's short. It's wanted superintendent for our education-rich, far suburban town. Rural ties meet Twin Cities edge. With funds locked, steer the new high school building from start to finish. Study later bells for healthier teens. Blend family values and rural practicality with academic flair. Partner with businesses and colleges. Hear every voice. And that's more, I think, has more personality to it as sort of a feel for what the job might be.
Sure, thank you. What does the rest of the board feel? How do you want me to put that in there for the first paragraph?
I heard you say you're gonna just try to work on this, and then you don't know how much space you need anyway because we haven't talked about salary and benefits. The school district mission vision might shrink in size. So I'd really like to go back to the first paragraph where it says priorities to have that say our vision. And then, Amy, you could share that, write up that document with Amy, and how you could do some wordsmithing, massaging. I think I hear some people are very happy the way that it is, and so we could. We've given you some suggestions there, and so we'll leave you to spruce it up.
Miracle here, yeah.
No, I appreciate the commitment to the process, you guys. It's really important, so it's good. Amy, would you mind emailing
I'm
that?
saying it to you right now.
Thank you. Okay, so the next piece that we need to talk about is the salary range. So again, we need a salary range. Typically, the wording in this paragraph is almost identical across districts. It's just the salary range that varies. It's very similar to, so the page after your hiring criteria results has kind of that compensation language, and it's very similar to that. Typically, we'll say that exact beginning part, and then additional benefits available may include, and typically it's like health, life, long-term disability, and 503B, among others. Others may be available. And so it's not, we don't get into all of the details of, we have a car allowance, we have a phone allowance, any of that. They're not looking at that. They'll see that in the contract. So it's just those main pieces. So all I really need to get from you is what that starting salary range is gonna be. And the last page that I gave you was a separate document that has some of those comparable districts, but please note that the two bottom ones are from last year's contracts, and one of them has a brand new superintendent. So that this would have been from the former contract.
Question in terms of the current one for Northfield, I think that's 11,000 less than it was the year before, right? Kelly, do you know? Because that was part of the budget
Yeah, we had
reduction.
undertook a 5% decrease on his salary, so, and Matt has certainly taken pauses in the past.
Yeah, I mean, so before, like, if we added that back in, it would have been 198.
Yeah, and I appreciate having the comps, which obviously is pretty typical. I know when we were looking at initial contracts with MSB, I was looking at Hastings, which is very similar in size, and I saw what they were advertising for, and I was like, wow, we really got behind. But they're also more metro than we are, so I had to pause and think about that through. So it's good to see comparables to New Prague, Red Wing, Elberly, some similar size and some similar distances. So I think the range certainly should encompass that, but I'm actually heartened to see some of these other numbers that we don't need to go as high as I initially thought. But also, depending on who the candidate is, and this might have a range, Matt had 10 years of experience to be at what he should have been at, whereas we might get someone with 5 years experience or no years of experience. So I think the current salary is probably a good middle ground, personally.
I agree with you. Matt, 1 year did not take any increase at all. Last year, he took a decrease in his salary. I think we were getting a deal with Matt, and that we should be looking at that Matt's current salary on the low side. And if we want to try to get someone in of a high caliber who's an experienced superintendent, we're looking at higher than Matt's current salary. And I'm just going to throw this out now, but what if we said a range of like $200,000 to $220,000?
Yeah, I would probably go 200 to 230 in all honesty, just to give yourself a broader range. Like you don't have to hire at that, but I mean, if there's a really qualified candidate from a larger district that's like, hey, guess what? Northfield's an awesome place to work. That brings a lot of experience. I don't think we want to close that door either. And really for 10,000 difference, you can get a lot different candidate. So.
One of the things we do well, though, is the 403B contribution. Because, again, 1 year he didn't take a salary increase, but he took an increase to his contribution.
Right.
Another year he didn't take an increase, but we gave him a bit of a slush funds because he likes to dabble in different electronic things. So he could try out different equipment, which would belong to the school district. So it wasn't his, but he could try out different things, and so we did what we could to make things fun and interesting for him. So I don't disagree with you. My only thought is could that be part of the negotiation where that could go into your 403B instead of, because we have that piece of it as well.
Well, I think you're defining the salary range, but yeah, I mean, anytime anything can be part of the negotiation, right? So, if somebody, again, I think to where Amy was starting to say, somebody might really want a higher salary, but less of a contribution in their 403B or whatever, it just gives more range to negotiate if you have a larger range, if that makes sense. I mean, we can still always define sort of what variables we want to consider as part of that, but.
Couple of points here. Excuse me, thank you. People always talk about the Golden Crescent, which is Minnetonka, Edina, and you've done some searches for them recently. So every time administratively, you have a rural district or somebody that's, not small, not huge, but they always like to compare to the Golden Crescent. So it's, to me, I mean, I would like to know from a standpoint of, what is a prospect looking at when they're looking for salaries? And maybe you do want to give a range of whatever to whatever, because the last thing I want to do is necessarily be on here and look like, I mean, we're in that 4,000 kid range or whatever else. And so, I don't know, what's the sweet spot of the bat for throwing out a number range for superintendent that, that doesn't, what I mean? I don't know. It's I don't know where the Golden Crescent thing came in, but I just, they're always comparing to that. It's like, well, they're getting that in Wayzata. It's like, well, we're not Wayzata, So anyway, your comment on that.
So to clarify, are you looking for how wide I think the range should be?
Well, I don't know. I look at writing an ad or having anything on there to get the phone to ring, and I would like somehow, if I had my magic pen, I would figure out, if I'm looking at Northfield, can I put a range in here that's going to, or whatever it is, because the number 187, when I'm looking at all this other stuff on here, I don't know, what does that mean? I mean, a 2 sounds, because by the time we add something onto that, aren't we going to be in the 2s anyway? I mean, 200? I mean, are we going to, where are we going to be? We don't know.
That's what we're,
deciding.
deciding.
No, well, I'm asking, but I don't know. I think that, do we want to go, I don't know, do you put, but I'm asking, if people are looking at this for whatever, I mean, what do you say if you're looking for a job like that? It's like, well, I can't be over 200, I'm not, and I don't know what, if you get a feel for, because you've obviously talking to a lot of people, what's the benchmark, the goal, or whatever? Is it always the more money? Is it and where are you at? I mean, with all the, I don't know, per pupil average. I mean, and I don't know about averages. I think if you want to get performance, sometimes maybe you got to pay a little
I think
bit
one thing
more.
you need to consider, Jeff, too, is the cost of living in the community as well, because
Right, yeah.
a house in Northfield costs more than a house in New Prague, costs more than
Right.
a house in Red Wing. You have to consider
be, yeah,
that,
yeah.
like, in addition to, compensation. Do you want to offer a higher compensation because you think it's going to attract a more qualified candidate? So that's really up to us, I think, and I would argue we want to attract the most qualified candidate that we can. And that's not always going to be compensation driven, but it will help, and having
They'll
a
get them
wide.
in the door.
Well, I just know that, I mean, if I look at this just from what I know over the years, is that, I mean, we typically have always matched up really well as far as the school district with New Prague. And that's 205. And then, I mean, Owatonna is very similar to us. They just have a lot more kids. So it's kind of like, and they've got a 2 in their number. I'm not saying we should put a 2 in our number, but I don't know what gets, to me, it looks to me like an ad. It's an invitation, and it's a, I mean, do you want to, what's the strategy? Do you want to start lower and add to that, or do you want to put, and you don't have, I mean, you have a number here, but you don't have necessarily a range.
Well, I think the materials and most of the ads that I looked at, there's a range of $20,000
Okay.
roughly. So
20
whether
to
it's
30.
yeah,
Okay.
so whether it's 150 to 170 or 250 to 280.
So
again, not
anyone
suggesting
applying,
those
and just out of
numbers.
ignorance, I'm asking, so if I'm applying for a
So
job, I'm looking at that,
200.
I'm going, the minimum I might get it 187, but depending upon me, I might get another 20 grand.
Right, depending on your
right.
Okay,
experience
all right,
and what
and
you
then
bring
that,
to the
would that be
table.
common knowledge then?
Absolutely.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep.
And so I saw 20 mostly. It's nice that you said 30. I know Ben said 30 because he's looking on the higher end to bring some. Again, we have a reputation. We want someone who's quality, but I would also just put out that we also have to consider a budget and the longevity of that. So 10,000 isn't just a one-time 10,000. It's 10,000 in year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on. And I know you're saying don't nickel and dime on a $67 million budget.
Yep.
Totally hear you on that, but something we need to be considerate of.
Especially when it's your leader. And I think
Totally.
just
I mean, I get it. Just throwing that out there for the board.
give yourself room to negotiate. Like I've hired many, many people, like, and kind of have been through that process many times.
For
So
sure.
I think
you don't want to lose the right person over a small percentage.
Amy, is there a reason why you stopped at 220? You have a
It
strong.
was just to start the conversation.
Started it.
And I guess for me, since we have a nice 403B contribution for Matt at this point, because that was one of the negotiations we did
Right.
before, that as long as we figure out how to say, all right, this extra money could go toward either the 403B or for the salary, or
Yeah.
I'm not assuming necessarily that we'd give the same level of a 403B if we're going to end up giving someone $230,000.
And I think that's what we end up negotiating later, coming up with the parameters, right? So now we put a range, 200 to 230, and then we will have a conversation where we say, let's offer this candidate this amount within that range, plus all of the, benefits that we can tweak. So,
Right. So total package comes later. All Amy's looking for tonight is a range on salary for
but
that ad.
does that feel comfortable, 200 to 230?
Yeah, I'd like to hear
Jeff?
others.
Jenny?
I have just a curiosity question. Do you know how much the superintendents in Minnetonka or Edina make? Do you have?
250,
I know
260.
their housing is much more
Yeah.
much more expensive.
Probably get car allowances and other
Yep.
fringe benefits.
There's a whole KSTP rundown of
Yeah.
all the car allowances and things like that last fall. So by that was like but my memory was like anywhere between 250 and 280. So.
I like 200 to 230, Claudia.
Right.
I think that was a good
I
idea.
just like showing a 2 number in there.
All right.
Because you're gonna end up being up there anyway with other package.
It's a little high for me, but I could probably come to it. I was thinking 195 to 215, 220, but again, we'll ultimately get to make that decision. I'd hate for us to find our best candidate and we realize we have to go to the exact ceiling.
Right.
Because I do have concern about hopefully we're finding someone who will want to be here and be here long term and not be a stepping stone, which means 15 grand a year is going to be 150 grand plus, increases over a decade, which is probably a good investment, you would argue, right?
Well, and a search costs us 16 grand a year anyways, so.
We're not doing this every year, though. I hope.
Exactly. That's
Right.
I don't know
I
if
only
I'm
have so many
thinking right,
Saturdays
but
to
to
give up.
see a 2 number gets me more.
Yeah, I think that.
What do you think is a prospect of people hiring that they're gonna look
So
at that? Because you
it
just,
sounds like people feel good about 200 to 230. Did you
I
have
would
one
even
other comment?
say 195 to 230 because then,
but I wanna show a 2 on there.
yeah, well, I'm just saying then when they get to the 2, they go, oh, we weren't offered the,
I don't know. That seems excessive
too
percentage
manipulative.
wise. Because that's like a 20% increase from low to high. Is that outside of standard practice? If we do 195 to 230, that seems excessive for a range.
But it's not necessarily, it says salary right on that, so you can, if you're saying salary, it can't be salary and benefits on that, you're
No,
talking.
I'm strictly talking about salary. Having a 20% window from floor to ceiling, that seems like a lot.
It is a little higher than what we typically see. But of course, I mean, you need to put what you're comfortable
So,
with.
anyway.
It is a larger,
And we're all throwing darts here.
I'm
Except for
going
that.
back on that, but I don't know if my logic necessarily makes any sense based on that. If somebody's looking at that, but I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking like, well, am I gonna apply to Northfield on there as a 2? You know what I mean? I don't know what the thinking on that is. And I know that you just said that it could be another $20,000 that they're looking at, so. I mean, I would assume, if whether it's at a 2 or a 187, am I still applying for that job?
I think just starting at 2 makes sense because it makes no difference really. And mentally, it pops out more to people.
No, I'm fine with 2. Are you?
we got it. I think we're all
All right.
good.
Well,
Good.
hold on.
And honestly, I would typically go the other way, but I think, to me, I look at it like an ad. You want the phone to ring. You want to get candidates.
Yeah, no, I think, again, I'm thinking long-term here, and I don't want to short ourselves, so, but I'm also concerned about if we do come in at the very high end. I mean, how do people feel about 200 to 225? I realize it's $5,000. You don't want to lose a candidate.
I think it's just, it's part of the negotiation.
Part of the
process.
negotiation. It's a range. Yeah.
Giving yourself
Yeah.
space to negotiate.
What do you,
It's not that you're guaranteeing
what's a
somebody to-
reasonable offer on the car? I mean, I don't want the car thing, but it's like 15 to 20 grand.
I know.
Where are we at? What are you willing to work for?
But here's the thing, though, if we're going to put 230, we have to be willing to commit to that if that's what the candidate comes
Yes.
to.
Yeah.
So
yes.
that's my concern is I don't know.
You can always say
And-
no.
And if you
I don't want to
have,
go through this process and say no.
sorry,
Sorry, no, that's my fault.
if you have a candidate with experience, which is what you're looking for, they're gonna come in probably expecting the top of your
Yeah.
range. And so you do have to be, like, if you're putting that as the top of your range, you have to be willing to do that. You can't go below your base. You could potentially, depending on, for example, if you're planning to offer a higher 403B, like you can offer the lower salary, but they're gonna expect to be closer to the top of that range. So it's a great point that you have to be willing to commit to that if you put that as your top, that there's a good chance you'll be in that area.
It's just when I look at these comparables, that makes us a pretty high outlier. And again, we want excellence. We're looking for the best leader. Totally support that. But 230 is a high number. But if that's where the board is leaning toward, I mean, I'm all about consensus.
So then what does that really mean? It looks to me like on the 403B, I mean, we're at 15 and the next highest is 12 and you got some of these that aren't. Does it make sense to have that to start with? I mean, lower so we could offer more on the salary or, I mean, I don't know, what's the trade-off on that? I don't know how that math works.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea when you come to that point when you're gonna do when you're going to, decide what your starting contract is gonna look like. If you're planning to offer more towards your, in the salary, then you would start lower with the 403B. I wouldn't go towards the top of your salary at that point, because then they might be, trying to negotiate a higher 403B, and now you're already at the top of your salary range. And so it's hard to go back down once you offer a certain amount. You could go down a bit and just say, well, we can give it to you in 403B instead, not in addition. But they're gonna be looking for you to give in that a little bit too,
Salary part.
so.
And Owatonna is listed here as 213, so I think 200 to 220 or 225 or 230, I'm comfortable with those, but definitely surpassing that 213 mark.
And Ben makes a good point about cost of living, certainly, and distance to the metropolitan. So we're on that line. So it could fall either way, but I think that's to our benefit in terms of available candidates, but we don't know where people are gonna live too. They might live in Wanamingo and work here. We can't
And Jenny, did
dictate
you
that.
have some comments too?
Just with that new perspective, it just got me thinking a little bit more about Corey, and then I went off of that, and then I started having concerns about, okay, so then after 3 years is up, and if the performance level is high, we're gonna wanna reward that high performance level, absolutely. And so then that kind of got me thinking a little bit more, like, should we be more reserved now then to make sure that we're, like Corey was saying, thinking about the future budget? So now that's where I'm at. I'm kind of like, not absolutely anymore.
Yeah, and I'm squabbling over $5,000, so I'm comfortable at the 200 to 230 range, and we can negotiate it later on. And if we get the best candidate possible, then we'll see where it lands.
It's Northfield, it's a special place.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Every day.
Corey, I have to say you're convincing me, though, that maybe we should
I better
bring it
shut up
down to
then.
225.
Well, that's splitting the difference. Why don't
Yeah,
we
let's
land there?
do-
225,
fine.
200 to
Fine with that.
225.
fine.
That,
You all do what you gotta do.
So yeah,
You
after I made my
Yeah.
case, I had flipped to go to 230 though.
okay. Could I propose a little break at this time?
Sure.
Is this a natural place?
Sure.
All right, so I'll need a motion to recess for 7 minutes.
Motion.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Second by Corey. All those in favor of taking a break until 8:30, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll take a little recess. resume, and Amy, Jordan, what is the next piece before we move on, I want to pose another question to the board, but I want to know, what are we moving on to?
Sorry. The next piece that we're gonna discuss is public input. And then we'll be getting to we're gonna do public input and then some of the decisions around added pieces like national advertising, background checks, and all of that sort of thing. And then the last piece will be discussing, we need to talk about a few roles in the district and then talking about the screening questions for the application process.
Okay. So the question I want to ask the board members is about the salary range. Don't throw rocks. Just about the salary range. You know, we're used to hearing from Val bring us those numbers and run those things in a very detailed way. There was arguments about maybe a little bit higher on that range, maybe started a little bit lower. So how would people feel if Val, now the vacancy needs to go out Tuesday, but how would people feel if we asked Val to give us her sense of that range on Monday and get that number back to Amy Jordan Monday? Just not necessarily asking Val to run numbers, but what's her sense of where we landed?
What information would she have that we do not have? That would help her come to that decision. Shouldn't we have that information too, though? If we're coming to that decision and then.
I hear what you're saying. The numbers that we got are the same numbers that she's going to get from this sheet, right?
Okay,
And
but
so-
she would just be an eighth person.
No, just from her insight with the budget and, looking at different salaries and having worked with me on Matt's salary over the years, I'm just asking if the board would feel comfortable if I asked her, how does this range feel to you? Like from her perspective, from her insight, not that she's the eighth person, not that she's setting the yes or no on it. But she is a financial expert where I am not. And we don't have to do that. We could stay on this range. We spend a lot of time on it.
I guess I see the value of knowing how different salaries would affect, for example, the fund balance how it would affect kind of going forward if that was the salary we were giving. But I feel like what I was hearing from others is that it's not such a big expense. I mean, it is a big expense, but it's not so big that it would affect it in the way that might change our mind, $5,000 or here or there.
Right, 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
So
I think it's nice to have a courtesy chat with Val saying, we came to this conclusion, it feels good to us, but we don't have the full picture. And is there anything that we should have considered that you would want to add to it? And the odds are she'll probably say, no, that's fine, but she may come up with something that we haven't considered, and that might affect the range that we would offer.
I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we talked about kind of delegating the board's authority to do the hiring, because why not ask Molly then, and why not ask somebody else? So let's let the board decide this and just kind of let that stand.
I agree with Ben.
Um,
I'm not comfortable
I would-
directing Val to do
yeah,
something.
I would just say, I'll make my final pitch, 2:30.
I'm sorry, say that?
I go back to my final pitch for 2:30 rather than 2:25. Again, just to give us more room to negotiate. All of this is like pencil dust in terms of
Yeah.
the overall budget,
70 million, you're talking about $5,000.
but it might be enough for somebody to say, "Oh, that's actually enough to compel me to take the risk." Because remember, this is a risk for people too, right? They're gonna advertise the fact that they may be interested in being interviewed outside their district. So, that financial difference to the individual might make a difference in that process. Not that I want somebody that's the only thing that's driving their decision, but it's part of a decision point. So
Would that ease some of your concern, Claudia, if we went up to 230, just so it gives us a little more room on the top?
I was just hearing people really express a wide range on that salary range, and the arguments are, they're salient about the cost of living here, and that Matt, Amy was talking about how Matt wasn't taking some increases, and Corey, you were saying you thought it was going to be a very large increase in the salary, and you were surprised to see Owatonna was at 213. So, I'm glad to stay at that 200 to 225. But I just wanted to see how people felt about getting that, that perspective from Val. But I also understand that it's not needed and may not be appropriate. So I just wanted to make sure that I could open that back up and allow for some space there.
Yeah, I don't know if 225, 230, we're not very far off on that anyways. It doesn't really necessarily. What I would really like to ask you is that who are we competing with now at this time for candidates for districts of our size in our area? And I mean, I went to college, just a little tidbit, because I'm a Metro guy too. I mean, I went to college for 4 years in Minneapolis, and then I lived in St. Louis Park, Golden Valley for about 10, and I lived in Edina for about 15. So, I mean, I know the Metro too. So the way that I look at it, if I was looking for a job, and I mean, obviously no Northfield, I mean, I would say like, where am I really interested in looking? And I would look at St. Paul, I would look at Minneapolis, and I'd circle like a 40-mile radius. And that's kind of what I'd be looking at. So what are you doing? What are you thinking of for, I mean, who are we competing with at this time that you can share as far as maybe for open positions for superintendent?
Sure. So I would have to look at the timelines because I'm trying to think who's actually going to even still be open, but also there's the potential of any new ones coming up at any time, right? And so there's always that. Right now in this area, I would say the closest ones are Inver Grove Heights and Hopkins, probably, because those are both open, but I believe they're done with the process sooner. I think Inver Grove Heights is interviewing soon.
So what you're saying, not a lot is what you're saying. There's not like 20 school districts that are looking for, gotcha.
No, not in this area.
Maple Grove and Forest Lake are openly looking right now, but like you said, that's not in this
Right, they're
area.
Yeah, yep. Like I'm thinking of there's some spread further out. I think you guys are the closest to the metro area without really being metro, other than, because Forest Lake is north.
We're a first tier area out of the metro, and really the line is kind of right up by Castle Rock, and that's kind of where our line for our district is. And then you get into Farmington, which is, bigger.
Right.
So to answer your question about Inver Grove Heights, I just looked up. They're listing in their leadership profile a salary range of $215,000 to $230,000.
They're also a first-ring suburb.
Okay, so maybe we sit on this 225 then. 200
Yeah, I was just going to
225.
answer, Jeff. In the proposal we had at our board meeting last week from MSBA, so I know that Amy mentioned Hopkins and Inver Grove Heights, but other ones that they are leading or have led this cycle as of 3 weeks ago: Aiken, Benson, Brainerd, Crookston, Edina, Hinckley, Finlayson, Jackson, Pillager, St. Louis County, Stewart, and Wayzata. So obviously all over the state.
Yeah.
So no real direct comps really, but
Right here.
But
right.
those are potential candidates who might be in Anoka that could go north or south, who would be great for either job. So, I mean, it's a statewide search, and certainly we'll decide if we want to go outside of the state for candidates too.
Yep.
So again, I'm comfortable where we're at. I'm also comfortable bumping up to 230 just to make it a little more appealing to potential all-stars.
Second, the 230.
230 is actually 25% higher than what we're currently paying Matt.
But it's a range. We're not saying we're going give that, we're saying we're willing to look at it.
And I'm also thinking what Amy was saying, that if we do get an experienced person applying, they're going to say, I want the 230.
You have to be
They'll
ready to
probably
give
say,
that.
I want the 225, but can you pay me 230? I mean, even if we say 225, they'll ask for higher than the range.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I could go either way, but I'm just thinking from negotiation, you know, how do we do that and also offer the 403B
Mhm.
money, and how does that all fit together? So, whatever the will of the board is, but I'm sort of on the fence.
There's check the math. That's 16% higher than where he was 2 years ago. 230, 198. So not 25, but 16. So
He's at 187 now.
I went to 198 because that's where he was
Well, he
before.
Should
Before he took his
theoretically be
cut.
at
Oh, well, I'm just saying where he is now. So we're both right.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, but I would use that 198 number in your head rather than the 187 because that's not really, I mean, that was an altruistic move on his part to demonstrate solidarity, I think, with
and not the
budget cuts.
first.
No.
Well, and that I was in a sense to beg the question a little bit because, you know, being a townie from down here, and I mean, I like my time in Edina, but, you know, we do kind of really have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I think that, you know, I do look at Northfield kind of more as a little more, I'm extremely biased, by the way, a little bit more upscale of rural, you know, whatever. And we're just kind of, you know, I think the real attraction to it is pulling a lot of metro people down here that just look, you're just coming right down. I mean, Lakeville's got 70,000 people. I mean, just that and just coming down. I mean, Lakeville is 70,000 people, and all of Rice County is like 60,000. So, I mean, I think we can attract a lot of good candidates just from the South Metro and whatever that want to look at Northfield like that. And you know, I don't know. I think we're kind of we have that 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and we say that all the time. But what does it really mean? You know, so.
All right, 230. I'm just going to throw it in. You guys got it.
Okay, thank you,
230 it
everyone.
is.
I feel like I won 2 debates tonight.
Okay. Okay, so I'm hearing 200 to 230. Is that correct?
Don't open it back up.
Okay,
please.
Good.
that's what I heard.
Check back in 10 minutes.
Yes, check back in 10.
Okay, we're gonna move along. All right, so we're gonna discuss some public input. So I already touched on the Q&A session and the search preview meetings. We're also going to be doing that superintendent search survey. So in your packet, you can see the survey that will be going out. It's gonna be available in both English and Spanish. The one question I have about it is that very first question where we want them to self-identify what role they are in the district. Do you want us to put business owner, district partner, agriculture, all three together, separate? How do you want that very first question, the very first option to look?
What does district partner mean?
It can be various. So especially with you guys having colleges in town, sometimes they consider themselves a district partner because they might partner with you for different projects, or there might be another organization that you partner with. And so that's kind of what that is encompassing, but you can remove that. A lot of people take that out and they'll just do business owner, or they'll just do agriculture.
I mean, I think if we left it in, I just want an example definition, just like you said, you know, this might represent a member of our college community or one of our local nonprofits or something like that. So I would just put a definition there, and I would personally just break them out separately, because why not? Like,
Sure. We can do that.
because you can cut and slice the data, you know, or you can aggregate and disaggregate, but you have to, the more granular you make it, the easier it is to do that.
So I think we should get rid of district partner, because if they're from the colleges, they're probably also community residents. So, and the colleges don't pay taxes anyway, so, and they wouldn't be responding as an entity. to us. Business owners are people who might not live in the community, but who own the business. So I think that's appropriate. The agriculture one is a little tougher because do we want to differentiate the farmers from the community members? Because they are community members, and I don't have a sense on that. I'd like your opinion about that because I think a lot of the agriculture people are also community members. And
Yes, they absolutely are. I think we see that very common in very rural communities because being the landowners, they have a large stake, especially in like a bond or a referendum, and their voice is heard very loudly is not the right word, but it's important like a business owner, right? And so they a lot of times they want that in there. You need to do what's appropriate for your community and what's appropriate for Northfield for that. So if you just want business owner to try to incorporate people who might not live in the community, but are, working here, paying taxes here, that would be appropriate, of course. Yes.
My personal preference is just to give people as many choices to self-identify as they want. So I would still say just keep district partner agri. It doesn't really matter. But it's just a way that allows people to show up and be like, yeah, that's me. So that would be my recommendation.
I would agree. It's kind of more for the person and not for us, right?
Right.
We should not ever, weigh someone's survey results more because they fit in a certain
Right.
category. That's why I don't really like this top part even. But like Ben was saying, it's not even probably for us. It's just for them. So to make them feel important, like they know where they fit in and they want to show it. But to me, I really don't care because I don't think we should even are we even going to see what
Who's a
the
district partner?
answer?
Yes.
And every school board wants that. They want
No.
to see.
I have had a lot of boards just completely
wouldn't wanna
remove the
know.
first
Yeah.
one. It was the way to include people who are, like you said, like business owners who are paying taxes but they don't fit under community member, they might live outside. If most of your business owners are probably community members, you could just completely remove it. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of districts that just don't even want that in there, just like you're saying.
When I read district partner, I typically don't even have a clue what that means.
Yeah.
So, business owner and agriculture means business owner / farmer. So I don't know, it's something else. Do we want to, because Northfield's got 2 colleges. Is there anything in here that really says, I three biggest employer, the school district, 3 of the colleges. So to me, it's kind of like district partner, and maybe that's another category in there, and, employee of St. Olaf or Carleton. I don't know but to me, it seems like, when you said district partner, I just did ask him, what does that mean? I don't know. Are you using that language all over? Or is it-
No,
okay.
no. There are a lot of districts that remove it. I think it's most common in the metro. A lot of them will keep that in there. I've had some who partner really closely with a university or a college, and so they want to keep it in for them. But you guys know what fits with the relationships of different members throughout your community. When you receive I didn't touch on this. So when you receive the results, you'll have the total number, and then you'll have it broken out by respondent category for the quantitative, the top sections. All of the general comments and the open-ended questions, that's not divided out by category at all.
Could district partner also be like a nonprofit that works with the district?
Yeah, like HCI or something.
Because we have a lot of those. Or maybe a contractor, if someone has a food service that's not within the district, or
Yep.
custodial pieces, which I don't think we have a lot of outside contracts. But again, I don't know that it matters in terms of what we get. Go ahead.
This last category, please specify, so is that gonna allow people to type something in on their own? Could the question just be, how do you relate to? And then people just put whatever they wanna put on there, parent, teacher, and some people might
if it's typed data, then it's harder to aggregate.
It's harder to.
Because you want to show how many parents versus how many staff members responded?
Right, if they're typing it in, it's not gonna be consistent about the group, and so we're not gonna be able to give you a broken out so that you can see what staff say versus parents. I think that's the majority of people who are gonna fill this out are gonna be staff or parents. And so unless you guys make, as part of like an advisory period, it be an option for like high school students or middle school students to take. That would be, otherwise typically we don't even see a lot of students take it. And the first question, it's one of the smallest respondent categories. So it's not like, don't spend too much time overthinking it, just like what feels right for this community. So if it makes sense to say business owner or district partner, because that might encompass people who don't live here but work here and have like a stake in what's happening, I would say it's appropriate to keep it. If it doesn't really, then let's just remove it.
I think we should keep it.
I would just keep it and make them separate lines that people can,
Like, you want all three separate?
I think. I mean, there's no harm in that. And then you can aggregate the data if you need to.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Is everybody comfortable with that? Just keep it and do all three and keep them separate.
I think you need
Or
to,
just say parenthetically, like, college affiliation.
But what is agriculture?
nonprofit.
Sorry, isn't agriculture said like, that's farming, so why wouldn't you just say farming? I mean,
The modern
Okay.
term is
sorry.
agriculture. Yeah.
And that could be removed because
Yes,
they
a
are
whole
community
school.
members. So it could be removed because they're community members. So that's the other thing. We could just pull out the agriculture as well.
And keep it in. I mean, it's just, if somebody wants to identify that way, it gives them the chance.
Okay.
And we are gonna hit up against 9 o'clock here, so, do people wanna keep going tonight? I hope you say yes, but we would need a motion to go past 9 o'clock.
What do we have to get through?
I mean, everything on my list, but like, we can go through it pretty quick.
All right.
There's just, if there's not a lot of,
Editorial.
potentially.
Okay, so,
So on the topic of the salary, I'm sure.
if people wanna go past 9 o'clock, can I get a motion on that?
so moved.
Second.
All right,
Get her
all those in
done.
favor of going past 9, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Go ahead, Amy Jordan.
Thank you. Okay, so that's all I needed about the survey, was just that first question. So then we're gonna talk about additional public input. So the process has the Q&A, the search previews, the community and staff survey, and then it also includes pieces of involving the community potentially in the interview process. So that's all part of it. So then if you go to, we're gonna discuss, do you guys want us to do any additional like focus groups or listening sessions? And if you do, those are an a la carte. And if you look at, their pages are numbered based on the proposal. So it looks like this, it says page 3, but it was of the, yep, you're close, 2 more down. 1 more, there you go. Thank you. So if you want us to do the focus groups or listening sessions, there's an additional cost for that. And that's up to you, because again, your community, if you think it needs to happen. What we have learned is that when you do that, you don't have as much engagement as you would like to have. And so the survey has become pretty much because it is more an equitable offering, because nobody's voice is able to be held louder than anybody else's. There's some things that happen with focus groups. If you hold them at a certain time, not everybody can attend. They might have childcare things, or they might be a shift worker or whatever. But we will absolutely do them if you think your community will want to have.
And really, we're coupling the survey with the question and answer video that's gonna
Yes,
hopefully help people also understand.
yes.
I'm okay with not doing one.
Me too.
Yes.
Okay, so we won't.
Okay. And then there's 2 meetings. If you go to the summary of search services page, it says it's page 2, but it's page 2 of the proposal pages. Summary of search services. It says MSBA search team will. The 11th and 12th bullet, I know they're not numbered for you, but there's red asterisks at the end of them. Those 2 meetings we offer virtually. But as you can see in the red at the bottom, if you would prefer that I come and attend in person, it's $300 extra for me to be here in person for those. Otherwise, I'll just come, do it virtually.
And for which is that? What's the?
It's the one where I do the interview training and we discuss the results of the public input survey. And then the other one is when you are selecting the candidates. Those are the 2 meetings
That could be virtual, as far as I'm
do
concerned.
virtual.
It's a meeting with us.
I would advocate for in person myself, but I pay better attention.
So it would be in this room.
And
she
Amy would be
on
virtual.
Yeah.
The screen. I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with virtual.
All right, I lost.
Okay. And then back to the other page we were talking to. So the next page, we have those additional a la carte options if you want us to do any of the national advertising sites. We don't mark up for those. This is exactly what it would cost. These are just additional optional things if you want us to post on those, in addition to where we already post.
Could you remind us of what is included with the fee and where you're posting and how long it will be, and then what the advantages of these other options and why we might want to consider them?
Sure. So where we're automatically going to be posting is on MSBA's website, on MASA's website, and then on EdPost. And then we also, it'll be in Revelis, which is the application system that we have that was developed specifically for school board associations who do superintendent searches. And so that, by nature of that, it's a national search because that is used by a lot of the school board associations across the state. So anybody who might be applying for a job in, say, Wisconsin or in Michigan, they can view the jobs also open in Minnesota. And so by nature of that, it's already a national search. This is just if there's a specific extra reach that you feel is important for your district. For the metro districts, their package usually includes that we'll just do them automatically. For other districts, we give the option. And I don't necessarily see in the districts that I've worked with, I haven't necessarily seen the return on it. And so I don't feel like it's necessary, but I want to present you with the option.
All right, so the American Association of School Administrators is not included in our general pricing now, in our overall?
Correct.
be
All
separate.
of these that are listed are not included. MASA, so we're posted in statewide. This
Okay.
would be if you want to be national. We will have, I don't remember if Barb talked to you about Josh Pauley or not, and he's our national recruiter. So he will be also recruiting for Northfield nationally. So that's also included.
So how does he do that?
So he attends conferences across the country, and he will be doing recruiting specifically for your district. And then he will also do, I don't know exactly how he does all of this, but he pulls together and identifies the closest districts outside of Minnesota to Northfield. Like not closest geographically, but overall size, reputation, all kinds of things he factors into it, and he'll specifically recruit from those districts as well.
And tell me again how the piece that's the national part that's included in our fee and how wide ranging that is and who uses it.
Okay, so I don't have the list of all of the states that use it. In your proposal materials, you can see everybody who belongs to the National Association of Superintendent Searchers. And there's a lot of those states are the ones that use it, but not all of them. Some of them have other completely different systems. So regionally, the ones that I know right offhand is Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. I'm pretty sure Illinois. I know there's some out east that use it. There's a couple, I think Texas was considering it. I don't know. I don't have the exact list of who all is using it. I just know regionally the ones that do.
And remember that a national candidate would have to quickly get a Minnesota license because they don't have the reciprocity
Correct.
that Barb was talking about the last time. And I don't think that they would be able to obtain it in that short amount of time. So they would already have to have a Minnesota license.
There's if they're already a superintendent and they already have a superintendent's license, there's the potential that they could get the provisional. But they have certain things that they have to do even to get that. At this point, it would still be possible. But again, when they're applying, we would be we work closely with BOSA on that. And so if we're seeing somebody from out of state apply, we're reaching out to them immediately to make sure that they're starting that process to make sure it can happen. And then we follow up with BOSA to see if they are following through or not. And then that will play into part in our recommendations. So.
And how long are the listings for the things that are included? Is that from the time you post until
Closing.
Until
Yep.
closing? So we'd have that 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Yep. And these are just how they set them up. They do them, like the only opportunity here is 30 days. And so you just have to do the 30 days. And so you could say if your posting was going to be open for 2 months or 6 weeks, you could choose to do, well, let's do the first 30 days or the last 30 days or whatever. That's why it has the specific days in there.
I'm comfortable foregoing national advertising.
Yeah, beyond what we would already get, I think.
Yes.
So.
Same.
I think we can skip it.
Me too.
I don't care either way.
Statistically, do you think we'd end up with somebody that's from Minnesota anyway? Not that you'd know.
Statistically, yes.
Yeah, I shouldn't say it that way, but I mean, on a
Yeah.
percentage wise.
The
Is it an
majority.
80-20?
Say that
Is
again?
it an 80-20? No.
I think we asked that last time, and I think of the searches that concluded last year, there was maybe one
A
out
couple.
of 20 that
Yeah, just a couple. Yeah.
Some of that just has to do with knowing state politics, legislature.
Mm-hmm.
It's all varies state to state.
And sometimes you'll have a candidate who is from Minnesota that was working elsewhere and wants to come back. So they have a little jump start as well. But again, if they want to be coming back to Minnesota, they are looking. They know where to look. And so the extra reach, you're not necessarily finding people that want to come here and be here. It's because they're looking and they're like, oh, I see this job. Now I might look into it. And so thinking about it in those terms as well is like what type of candidate you're going to gain from it. Are they looking for Northfield? No.
Do you do any personal reaching out to people who either maybe applied recently to a different position that you're overseeing, but they weren't the right fit for whatever reason? Or you're just looking and saying, wow, this school district is a lot like this, and maybe do you try to encourage people to apply at all?
So I do not. I do not. I do not offer to candidates if they reach out to me and ask. I don't give anything unsolicited in that regard because I'm not going to be reaching out to somebody in your district and telling them that they should apply for something else. And so, no, I do not do that. If they're already applying and they are savvy enough to ask for feedback and input that way potentially, but even so, they're going to know about the jobs. I'm not going to be tapping them on the shoulder and telling them to apply. We want people to apply who want this job, not because I told them they should look at it. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. I think overall I heard no to the national advertising. Is that correct? Okay. So then the background check process, you guys will do all of your The school district must complete all of your standard required hiring processes to comply with all state and federal laws and regulations, which includes the verification of legal authorization to work in the US. In addition to like the vetting, the pre-interviews, our process includes that piece with working with BOSA, the school administrators, on the licensing, alignment with professional standards and certification. Upon request, we also partner with Baker Eubanks and conduct formal background checks, and that is an option to you. I'm just gonna tell you about it, but unless you know right away you want me to do them on all of the, whoever you're gonna interview, or you wanna wait till round 2, other than that, and even now, I don't need to know that until later. I just want you to know about them. So it's a $395 fee, which is, I know, a lot, because your standard background check is probably done for $20 to $60, right? So this is what that covers. It's the national criminal, the global watch list, the county criminal, statewide criminal, social security and residence, national sex offender, federal criminal, federal civil, DMV report. They do the education verification to the highest degree, employment verification for up to the previous 10 years, and then they do a social media review with a comprehensive report, and then also like a Google review. So that's what that all includes. And again, it's $395, and you can select to do it on all of your finalists if you want to do that. You could just say, we just want to wait until we know who we're hiring, because you might be hiring a known commodity, right? Somebody that you're already familiar with, you already know, and then decide then if you want to do the extra background check or not. And so I don't need to know unless you guys decide, or until you guys decide if you want to do that or not. So just so that you know, that's I just want you aware of it, and I'll kind of follow up in a couple of points throughout the search to see if you do want us to do those or not.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing about that, though, the thoroughness of that, because, and this isn't a joke, like after seeing what happened in Des Moines, like this sounds like money well spent once we get to that point.
Yes. Unfortunately, we can't do the I-9 verification. That's why I made that statement. That's not part of our process. Only the hiring authority can do that. So the district would have to do the I-9 verification. But yes, yeah. Okay. So the role of the current superintendent, I just wanted to, typically there isn't a role for the current superintendent in the search process other than being like an ambassador for the district. There's likely going to be candidates who are reaching out to Dr. Hellman to ask him questions about the district, and that's typically what his role is, and I just like to just clarify that with everybody. For the school board spokesperson, I mentioned this really early on during the workshop. Who do you want to be the school board spokesperson? Typically, it's the board chair, but not always, so I just want to confirm that.
Sure. And I'm willing to do that role unless somebody has a strong feeling they'd like to field those. All right.
Yeah, I'd say Claudia's fine. Thank you. Over the years, we have used a number of different, people for spokesperson, but I think it is the most obvious and acceptable to use, usually the chair, so thank you, Claudia.
And you're asking mostly so you know who to contact and who to share things with, correct?
Yes, and then your name will also go on the press releases, which we always send them in a Word document so that you guys can modify them to fit your standard protocols, but then it's already in there. So yeah, that way then we don't put MSBA on the press releases so that any media outlets will reach out to you directly.
Sure.
Okay. A couple of ground rules, do's and don'ts that I like to cover. Turn down any candidates who might be asking you for a reference or a letter of recommendation. It could put you in a very awkward position if you're listed as a reference or writing a letter of recommendation for a candidate, especially if then the candidate doesn't move forward or you end up voting for somebody else and so on and so forth. So we just say it's good practice to just turn them down and say that it doesn't feel appropriate. If you're contacted by candidates directly, please just direct them back to me. They should not be reaching out to you. So please just tell them to reach out to MSBA. Don't conduct any deep social media investigations yourself. We will do We'll be doing some of that as part of our process as well. So don't feel like you need to spend a lot of time on that. As a reminder, you're going to be lobbied by people in the community, by potentially districts where people are coming from. You're going to be lobbied for and against the candidates as soon as their names become public. Please listen to what they're saying and thank them, but don't engage in the conversation or get into any sort of debate. And then I'll remind you this when we get further into the process, when names are going to become public. But if you are hearing very concerning things, please reach out to me. That is my role. MSBA will do some investigating to see if it's something fact-based, if it's just rumors, if it's just gossip, or what is going on with that. Sometimes it's things we already know about, we've already investigated. However, sometimes we do learn new things and it's something that needs to be looked into. And so you as board members, I wouldn't want you calling around on candidates doing that. That's part of what our role at MSBA is to do. So again, thank anybody who's sharing any information, but also don't get into debates or discussions about them. Let me know if you're related to any of the applicants, because then we get into special voting circumstances. I won't know if you're related, so if you are, please let me know as soon as possible. And the last thing is, of course, don't do any recruiting of candidates yourself, because it appears then like they might have a leg up, which they don't. They will have to go through the exact same process. That is all I have for our ground rules, and I believe my in-district contact person, just to confirm with everybody, you're all comfortable with it being Kelly throughout the process? Thank you. And then who is your in-district, I call them a confidentiality employee because sometimes it's HR, so who holds your personnel records?
Molly would.
HR director.
Thank you. And then our last thing that we need to do is decide 2 questions for the application process. So the last page of your packet has questions that have been, or topic areas that have been asked before. You think through what you just kind of want to learn. Again, we're going to be asking questions in interviews. So if there's something that you really want to hear the candidates say, save it for an interview question. Let me know to maybe bring it back for an interview question. We just want to know what you want to know to narrow down the pool, what you want them to talk about in their applications themselves. And we can customize any of these questions. If there's not even a question here that you're interested in, you guys can make your own. This is just to kind of get your ideas flowing. So we just need 2 questions. There is already going to be a question about when you reading the leadership profile, why do you think you're a good fit for Northfield Public Schools? So that's already going to be in there, and then we just have 2 additional questions. Mm-hmm. And that's the last part of this, other than answering any questions you guys have. So we're almost done.
I like questions that demonstrate actual work they've done, then also their ability to recall that and share it. So I would lobby for number 6. Tell us about a time when you modeled and upheld your district's values and policies, particularly since the emphasis we put on our own values and policies and our vision. And then in that same vein, I kind of like number 8, share an initiative that you're most proud of. So it allows for them to show a little bit about their personality, but also their approach to their work.
I approached it by looking at the way that we landed and how we built the leadership profile out of the way the board members voted on those traits. And so I landed on question 6 that related to the 7 votes that leads with honesty. And I landed on question 11, data driven, with 5 votes on the experience in school finance. So 6 and 11 for me.
I think, one thing Matt did well was kind of captured number 2. So what are some strategies and initiatives that have implemented or supported to promote collaboration, trust, and respect with, schools, students, families, community partners? Like that, I think, really stood out, and it's something that I would want to see in the next candidate, and that one I think was important for me, as was number 3. Though I do always, one question that I like that's not on this list, and it's kind of, it demonstrates just sort of where people bring perspective, because it's very wide open in terms of what they think is important, and that can be to say, if I gave you a magic wand to fix one problem in education today, what would it be? And I think that really gives, some of these get fairly pro forma in response. It's like, well, of course I'm going to prioritize my time and meet with everybody I can meet with, and everybody that's a decent candidate's going to answer it in a fairly generic way, but with some good examples. But I think a more open-ended question like that gives people an open field of play to respond. So I would.
And I really like that kind of question for the interview part, because then you hear them think out loud. Obviously, we prepare and anticipate questions, but we don't, we could still have that, but be part of the interview rather than the application. But I like that question a lot. Maggie, Jeff?
I like very specific, kind of into the heart questions where we kind of give them parameters so they can't just answer it with generics. And so that, I really liked number 12. And they had to, we're giving them the parameters and areas, and then they have to use those in an answer.
Did you have a second? Or you just want to?
I had the same ones as Corey.
6 and 8? Or?
My turn. I really liked your perspective of some of these questions would be good to ask in person, and some maybe are better on the application form to give us a sense early on. So I tried to look through that lens in the last few minutes. I think the questions that people have been saying have all been good questions. I don't have any problems with any of them. But I do like number 2. I think that's a good one. And then I'm going to just throw another one in the mix because that's what I do. I like number 13 because I think it's important to see how they respond to equity and inclusion in the district. And I think that's been an important thing that we've done over the last 10 years to try to address the gaps in achievement. And that's going to be an ongoing situation. So those would be my 2.
Maggie or Jeff?
My original 2 were, 7 and 14, which I don't think anyone has said. So to add one in.
You added 2 new ones.
I added 2 in. Okay.
That's fine.
I don't love 7, actually, now that I have said it out loud, but I like the idea in the application of actually maybe having one that's somewhat specific and then one that's a little more broad, and they could kind of answer it how, you could talk about inclusion and equity in 14, right? Like there are always going to be competing, there's the word priorities and demands. And I think that allowing them to kind of decide how they want to answer a question would be great. I was also looking at number 1. I don't love the vision for the future of education, but I do think that kind of open-ended vision question is instructive because they don't know what we want to hear and we don't know what they're going to say. So if you narrow them too much, we're only going to hear about those particular things that we're asking about, not what they're interested in.
One more open, one more narrow. And did you like Ben's magic wand question for the application or for the interview?
Yeah, I think a magic wand for the interview.
Okay. All right, Jeff?
I always have a tendency to lean towards vision, and I think asking that more as an open question is where we're at. Where do you believe you could take us with our priorities? And I'm always kind of typically right around, I don't know if it's even on here, for student safety and student achievement. But I would also say, putting that under, number 9 may be more effective, your leadership style. So the vision of the individual, the leadership style, and how that matches or does not match with our district and goals and geographics. So.
Are there, I wasn't really keeping track, but are there ones that have multiple, and could someone just say what those were?
The ones that came up,
The ones that came up more than once, I
the ones
guess.
that came up more than once that I heard were 2, 6, and 8. Did you have other ones?
No, 2, 6,
6,
and
and
8 is what I also got. 2, 6, and 8 had 2 votes.
I thought I had 3 on 6. You had- Yeah, we both had 3 on 6,
okay.
and then 2 on 8, and 2 on 2.
And I like this idea of one more narrow that Jenny was saying really gives them, the boundaries there, something very specific, and then something a little more open-ended. I think we could look at
The 2 is pretty open-ended, right? I mean, I feel like that, to me, that's open-ended.
and we can also a little bit combine, another favorite question, not making it too much, but if you couldn't live with just question 2, if you wanted to combine something with it.
I'm fine going
What about
2 instead of 8, but
2 and
6
8? Or you think 2 and
2 and
6?
6?
Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of open and more
Well, let's-
focused.
I mean, they're both a bit open, but one's a little better defined.
Tell us about A time.
sure.
Right, this is just
Mhm.
for the app.
All right. So people feel good with 2 and 6?
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting tired.
This is what it's gonna be like after
They're agreeing now.
the first day.
2
of
and 6.
interviews.
Thank you, Amy.
That's all I have for you guys, unless you have questions. Also, if you don't have questions for the betterment of the whole group, I'm happy to stay after to answer individual questions from
And I also
individual board
heard you
members.
say we could connect with you individually too. So, you
Absolutely.
all have access to Amy. So,
Yep, you can send me.
yeah, Amy Jordan. And me too. You have access to all the Amy's you want. Did you want to say something, Jenny? No? Oh, okay.
I should just, you guys have my contact information. Throughout the entire search, you can call me, email me, text me, whatever works for you works for me. I am very aware that school board members do their work all kinds of different times. Some of you are doing it during the day, some are doing it in the evening, some are doing the weekends. I will be available when you need me to be. If for some reason I'm not available right away, I try to return messages within 2 to 4 hours if I can. If I can't, it's 100% within 24 hours. So I will get back to you and I'll be available to you.
May I make just a request that whenever you have something posted online, like, in the various organizations where we're going to post the job, could you just send the link to us? It's board@northfieldschools.org so we can see the various places where things are posted.
Yep.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're done here. So, are we done here? Everybody is ready?
Second.
Okay, very good. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank
I thought Jeff was walking away.